Good day, everybody. Welcome into Hoopsville. I'm your host, Dave McHugh. It is a Monday morning, and we're still recovering from the absolute insanity that is the D3 tournaments on the opening weekend. I thought about this over the weekend. We're always so used to it crashing down to the last 16 teams on both sides. It still feels sudden. It still feels like, wait, what just happened? We're down to 32 total teams. We had 128 just a couple of days ago. It's amazing how quick that feels, even though we know it's going to happen. If you've got questions for us, you can always email us, hoopsville at d3sports.com. You can interact with us on social media, including X, which right now seems to be acting up for me at least. I don't know for everybody else. We'll certainly check it everywhere else. We're also on Instagram and Facebook, YouTube, etc. The information at the bottom of your screen. If you're a podcast listener and you don't know those things, look for at D3Hoops or Hoopsville. Let's see. We're also live streaming. Live streaming through Huddle, which is the home for all of the streams this weekend, which I thought, for the most part, looked pretty good. End of the show, we'll talk about some things that bugged me a little bit with how some D3 schools approach the NCAA tournament, and how I don't think it's good for Division III, and some other things that I think hurt Division III as well. So we've got that all ahead and what we've just dealt with. You can also stream our show on YouTube and on Facebook Live, where we are definitely up and running. Appreciate it. Hopefully the cameras hold, everything works right, all of that. Having some issues with socials. I'm not sure why. I'm literally checking to see if it's just on one particular spot or if it's across the board. We'll get our information out there nonetheless. Again, absolutely crazy weekend. We're always used to surprises. We're always used to upsets. It happens. It's not that uncommon. Close games, par for the course, right? We're used to that. I don't think I was ready for some of these outcomes, to say the least, because I got surprised. Let's just talk on the men's side. We'll start in the upper left-hand quadrant. Wesleyan comes out of there against WPI. That's chalk, as it were. Stockton beating Ithaca was chalk. Technically, Gettysburg beating Chatham was chalk. Even though Gettysburg was technically ranked below Chatham, I don't think many of us felt it looked bad, as it were, or it was going to work out that way. Good games all up in Middletown, no surprise. Ramapo quad, a little bit more bunkers, to say the least. Ramapo and Claremont Mudd-Scripps needed 2 overtimes before the Roadrunners were able to survive CMS. I actually thought, listen, I know Ramapo's good. We saw them in Las Vegas. We knew they were going to be a challenge, but I thought Claremont Mudd-Scripps was playing so well they'd come out of it. 2 overtimes, no knock on either of them. They played very well, right? Mary Washington went and thumped Drew, 73-58, and the game, I think, wasn't even that close. This surprised me, because the way Drew was playing, especially in the last month of the season, was really good. And to get just trounced by a team who entered the tournament 13-14, and by all accounts was just not great this year, stunned me. And so you're like, wow, okay, Drew gets thumped. That's kind of a bad look. But then Mary Washington goes and beats Ramapo 86-81. I know coaches don't look ahead. I'm sure Ramapo wasn't going, we're focusing on Drew. We're not going to worry about Mary Washington. So I don't think it was one of those scenarios. But wow, really stunning result to see Mary Washington come out of the weekend, 86-81 over Ramapo. Threw a curveball into everything. Though not all. It just not what we expected. Then you finish that out with Barry defeating Guilford by 3, showing Guilford again was just inconsistent this year. Really surprising, especially against good teams that they needed to beat, other than the ODAC tournament. Guilford didn't win a lot of the big games. Emory over Huntington was no surprise, and then Emory handled Barry rather easily, which I think was a little bit of a surprise. You go down to the Trinity quadrant. Trinity gets out of that pretty nicely. Keene gets past Clark, but then Trinity handled Keene. I'm not surprised by any of those results. Western New England over Hamilton, bit of a surprise, but Western New England playing pretty well because they then went and beat Montclair State. The hosts, 79-61, wasn't even close. So Western New England to play Trinity in a battle of, what is that? That's I-91, right? If memory serves. Or is that I-91, I think. Those two teams will face off in Trinity. And on the other, in Trinity's the headline here, because Roanoke beat Pfeiffer, barely survived against Pfeiffer, we should point out. Christopher Newport easily got past John Jay by hanging 101 on him. And then Roanoke beat Christopher Newport at Christopher Newport, 77-75, in a thrilling finish. And on the other side of that, Catholic destroys Franklin and Marshall, 84-50. Not the result you expected, A, from the runner-up in the Landmark Conference, and B, from the champs of the Centennial. At F&M, it was in Lancaster. Randolph-Macon then thumps Westfield State. Okay, expected. But Catholic handles Randolph-Macon in the second round. That game was 17-18 points, much of it, before Catholic won by 12. So we're going to Trinity, and it's going to be Trinity, Western New England, Roanoke, and Catholic. Instead of Christopher Newport, Randolph-Macon, Trinity, and pick them, Montclair State, Hamilton, whomever. Unbelievable lower left-hand quadrant. I did not do a bracket this year at all in the bracketology stuff for the D3 Challenge. Be fascinating how many people got absolutely destroyed in that one. Of course, tip of the hat to my bud Clay Nunley at Roanoke. Those are two huge wins, and now they head to Trinity. And a lot of people here are talking about the fact that Trinity's hosting here because Roanoke will fly, and that Catholic would have been a non-flight situation. I think we have to remember something. We're now in a little bit of a newer D3 age where if it's just one flight, they're probably going to give that host to somebody who deserves it based on seating more than giving it to somebody who is just geographically central. Now, this also is if Catholic put into the paperwork for the second weekend. I know they put in for the first weekend. I don't know if they put in for the second weekend. But more importantly, even if they did, I like this move. It tells Division III, listen, if we have a fair reason to send it to a place like Trinity because of one flight, we will do so. We will pay for that. We won't fall back on the easy, it's going to Catholic because everybody can get their thing. Some people pointed out that this equals out the number of flights on the men's and women's side at 7. I don't think that's a real thing, and I only say that because you can't predict it. I think a lot of tournaments you will see an imbalance in flights because the bracket's dictated in imbalance. Could the men have used that to get to the 7th flight? Yeah, maybe. But I think the larger thing is that somebody was able, or somebody was had the presence of mind to say, this is just the right thing to do. It's just one flight. It's not going to hurt us here too much to send Roanoke to Trinity. So good move. I'm talking a lot. We shouldn't just focus on the men but I'll quickly recap on the right side. NYU got through the York pod. York knocked off John Carroll. We'll talk more about that game later in the broadcast. Hardin-Simmons got past Cal Lutheran. Ryan and I talked about how good Hardin-Simmons was, and it wouldn't be surprising if they had a good weekend. We'll talk to them coming up on the show about it. St. Thomas got past Lewis and Clark, and then Hardin-Simmons beat St. Thomas. There's a strong part of me that's not surprised by that. They will head to New York City. Hampton-Sydney came out of their bracket. Pitt Bradford, though, gave them a game. Pitt Bradford nearly became the story of the tournament and one that had been flying under everybody's radar. And that's partially my fault. Pitt Bradford's been on my list of guests to talk to, and we botched it. We just didn't get to them. Redlands came out of the Tufts bracket. They actually had an easier time with St. Joseph's than I expected, because I expected more of St. Joseph's. Tufts got past Yeshiva easily, and then Tufts and Redlands needed overtime before Redlands finally got past them 95-93. So Redlands flies out to Tufts. I'll have to check with Bridgeland. Maybe they just stay on the East Coast instead of flying back and forth because they got to be in New York City. So they could easily drive from Boston to New York City and make a week of it. I'll probably text them while we're in the middle of the show, in fact. Platteville gets knocked off by Wisconsin Lutheran, 75-73 in overtime in the second round. Tip of the hat to Wisconsin Lutheran. We knew they were a good team. I've been voting them pretty high in my top 25 most of the season. They dipped a little bit near the end. but knocking off Platteville, that's a huge win for Wisconsin Lutheran. They'll take on Wash U, who came out of their weekend. St. John's and Illinois Wesleyan was a bonkers of a game. St. John's had a bonkers of a game against Chicago, using a buzzer beater to advance, and Illinois Wesleyan essentially gets that avoids a buzzer beater essentially, or hits a shot and then avoids the buzzer beater. They advance over St. John's. Great games at Chicago the entire weekend. St. Norbert knocks off Carthage by 3 in the first round, and then has to take on a lacrosse team that, well, they played the system against Grinnell, won 120-93 over Dr. Barber's squad, and then lacrosse beat them 77-67 in a very different game, or beat St. Norbert, I should say, 77-67 in a very different game. So you got Wisconsin Lutheran, Wash U, Illinois Wesleyan, and lacrosse, all at lacrosse, because Illinois Wesleyan women are hosting. And the women's side, listen, there was chaos on the women's side as well. Bowdoin handled things rather easily the entire weekend. Amherst and Smith was a pretty good game right to the end, but Smith survives that one. McMurray continues to play well. They're like Hardin-Simmons. We had McMurray on earlier in the season. They're a very good squad, and they get past Texas Lutheran. And Texas Lutheran, of course, beat the hosts in the opening round. Gustavus Adolphus playing really good basketball, everybody. Knocked off Wartburg, handing them their third loss of the season to end it. You will have Gustavus Adolphus out of Minnesota, McMurray out of Texas, Smith out of Boston, all at Bowdoin in Maine. Very reminiscent of what happened 5 years ago in Bowdoin, in Brunswick, when everything got shut down. Remember, you had teams from all over up there, including Whitman. Speaking of Whitman, they didn't survive. We'll get to that. Illinois Wesleyan absolutely handled Trine. Unbelievable result against Trine, who had beaten Transylvania in overtime the night before. I did not see that coming. Titans won 82-50. I don't know what to make of that game. Oshkosh got out of their pod. They beat Bethel in the second round by 10. Really good result for the Titans. We'll hear from them later in the show. Ohio Wesleyan gets out of their pod after Washington Jefferson knocked off Messiah. Ohio Wesleyan said, Washington Jefferson, your season is over. Good pod down at Baldwin Wallace, and the host did come out of that, but barely. Wash Lee gave Baldwin Wallace a heck of a game, but Washington Lee, unfortunately, their crazy run last year does not get replicated this year. Upper right, NYU women continue to roll. They beat Gallaudet 102-62, no surprise, then beat Trinity 83-45. Geneseo's the story out of the pod at Catholic. Geneseo beat Catholic 74-63. In the meantime, Montclair State knocks off Christopher Newport, number 9 team in the country, 67-64, setting up Geneseo and Montclair in the second round, and Geneseo wins 71-49. We'll hear from Melissa here in a matter of minutes to talk about Geneseo heading out. Randolph-Macon comes out of their pod. Gettysburg, with an injury, comes out of their pod. Unbelievable game against Western New England. I'm telling you, one of the best women's games I've seen in person in a long time. Gettysburg and Western New England was so much fun. Shania Lee, we'll be talking about Gettysburg more on Thursday, but they come out, they'll be hosting this weekend. NYU, Geneseo, Randolph-Macon, and Gettysburg. Then at the lower right, unbelievable. Whitman gets past Superior easily. Stout gets past Ripon easily. And then Stout beats Whitman by 7. We'll talk more about this later because some people weren't behaving themselves there. Then you've got Hopkins getting past St. Joe's, Connecticut rather easily by 25, which stunned me a little bit. I thought St. Joe's might give Hopkins a more competitive game. I guess not. Carnegie Mellon gets past Bridgewater, and then Hopkins beats Carnegie Mellon by 10. Hopkins playing really well. That's 2 Centennial women's teams in the second round. Bates gets past Southern Virginia in a dandy of a game. Scranton just blows the doors off Mount St. Mary 93-35 and then sends Bates packing by halftime. So at Scranton, you've got Stout and Whitewater. Think about that. Stout and Whitewater playing in Scranton, and then you've got Hopkins and Scranton playing. That's going to be an amazing weekend. So that's it in a nutshell. And we'll talk a lot about this coming up, because coming up on the show, Geneseo's women's coach, Alyssa Pulaski, will join us to talk about their incredible first weekend. UW Oshkosh women's coach Brad Fisher will join us. Mary Washington's Marcus Kahn, Catholic's Aaron Kelly, and we'll hear from the Hardin-Simmons team including their head coach, Matt Brackett, coming up. We'll also hear from Ryan Scott, who looked back 5 years ago to the tournament that didn't end up finishing and made some prognostications on how it would all turn out. Looking back at it 5 years later, I think he's got some mixed feelings about what he wrote down 5 years ago. We'll talk to him. That's all ahead on an absolutely jam-packed matinee edition of Hoopsville. We'll take a break. When we come back, we'll get it started with the Knights, who are knocking everybody around right now in women's basketball. What they expect they can do, maybe in the second weekend. We'll talk to the Geneseo squad coming up. You're listening to Hoopsville, presented by DIII Hoops. Back with so much more on this matinee edition of Hoopsville coming up.
We've got more schools than Division I, more fans than Division II, and more upsets than March Madness. There's nearly 850 programs with over 11,000 games leading to 2 national championships. And we've been covering it all for over 2 decades. From Eastern to Occidental, from Puget Sound to Piedmont, from Southwestern to the University of New England, and from Hope to Calvin. Nobody covers Division III basketball like we do. We're D3Hoops.com at www.D3Hoops.com.
The National Association of Basketball Coaches is the nation's premier professional development and advocacy organization for basketball coaches at every level. The NABC strives to serve as the voice for coaches on national issues while advancing the core value of leadership, service, advocacy, education, and inclusion. To learn more about the NABC and to become a member, visit NABC.com and follow the NABC on social media at NABC1927. That's NABC.com or NABC1927 on social media.
It's on us to stop sexual assault.
In any way that we can.
To get a friend home safe.
To never blame the victim.
It's on us.
To stand up.
To make our community safe for all. It's on us.
It's on us to look out for each other at parties.
It's on us.
To be more than just a bystander.
To step up and say something.
It's on us, all of us.
To stop sexual assault.
Learn how and take the pledge at itsonus.org.
If I lose, I'll respond with respect.
If I win, I'll back it up with humility.
If I fail, I'll rise up with honor. It's tough for us to put it all on the line.
Don't undo my hard work with poor sportsmanship.
Respect. It's the name of the game.
Coach of the Year, Administrator of the Year, All-America Team, Wade Trophy. The WBCA doesn't just honor coaches, but players, administrators, and much more. The WBCA strives to honor those who have contributed to the advancement of women's basketball. Celebrate the present, honor the past, look to the future.
Division III men's and women's basketball players build skills and characteristics that set themselves up to win in life. How do they translate those skills when the ball stops bouncing? They join Dream Team, the network built by and for athletes who want to leverage their competitive advantage in careers and business. Find your post-basketball calling, your next team, and learn how to win big at DreamTeamWins.com. That's DreamTeamWins.com.
I used to never really talk. Ever. I was afraid if I said something wrong, everyone would laugh at me. But then I started to play golf with Special Olympics. It helped me to find my voice. And now everyone else is speechless.
Welcome back to Hoopsville, everybody. I think X, Twitter, whatever you want to call it, may be acting up. We've been trying to send out our tweet about us being on the air for 20 minutes, and it's just floating. We're doing our best. So if you're trying to get a hold of us on the tweets, we're all shut down, and there's some irony in that. It just sucks. Could you have had that irony when I wasn't on the air, is all I'm asking. I'm your host, Dave McHugh. Thanks for joining us. Hope you are enjoying the show. We are live streaming on Facebook and on YouTube. If you want to interact with us there, you certainly can. Email us, hoopsville@d3sports.com. I know a lot of you are watching us during your lunch or brunch hour. Please interact with us. Let us know what's going on. Really appreciate it. All right, let's talk women's basketball. I just was talking to one who turns out was coming through where I was this weekend, which has me a little thrown, but we'll talk about that later. We just got done talking about just how great a weekend Geneseo had, right? They beat Catholic 74-63 in the opening round of the tournament, then knocked off Montclair at Catholic 71-49. Things get a little bit more difficult next round. They've got the number 1 Violets of NYU, who haven't lost since 2023. I don't know. I think it's doable. You never know. The Knights might be up for it. They all preach the one night. We all know where that came from if you're a history of D3 hoops. And Hoopsville, joining us on the Hoopsville hotline to talk all about it is Alyssa Pulaski, the head coach of the Geneseo Knights women's basketball team. Now, we should point out, of the Empire 8. Coach, welcome to the show. Good to see you. Congratulations on the second weekend. Heck of an accomplishment.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It's been a whirlwind of 9 days here, but it's all right. Life is good.
Oh, I'm sure it has been. We'll talk about the weekend, then we'll back up. Because I think we need the context by backing up. But let's talk about the weekend. You come in against a Catholic squad who's at home, who is in one of the tougher top parts of a conference we've seen in Division III. Landmark Conference, Scranton, Catholic, Elizabethtown, sometimes Susquehanna. It is a beast. So they're prepared, right? They're experienced. You come in having you and Brockport, I hate to say, handling your new conference, the Empire 8. A lot of people expected, Catholic being the host, that they would get the opening round win. What did you see going into that game that you thought you all could and did take advantage of to win 71-49?
Yeah, when I was watching that film all week, I saw that they were really talented, really aggressive, can absolutely put the ball in the basket, but that they also did a lot of things that we had seen all year in our opponents and that we had defended all year. So we tried to lean on that and just be really good. We're not a program that typically tries to memorize opponents' plays because it's just too hard of a thing to do. So let's focus on how we defend these concepts that they like to execute.
Sure.
For that Catholic team, it was ball screens, it was a lot of movement, a lot of backside action, and that's stuff that we've seen all year and that we've been really good at defending, especially in the month of February. So, part of it was just getting mentally prepared to go on the road and play the host team of this difficult pod, and I truly think that was the hump that we had to get over, is just knowing ourselves deep down that we deserve to be there just as much as everyone else, and that we could compete with these teams at the highest level, and we did that.
It's a quick side note. It gets to my argument where everyone's like, those coaches who want to hide their archives, hide their broadcasts. By the way, I have no idea if you guys do this, so if I'm hitting a nerve, I apologize. But those who hide this stuff so that people can't see an archive of a game because they don't want their game film out there, or they don't want to be exposed to, first off, their film's out there anyway. Second of all, it's, as you just said, it's about the concepts. So no matter what you're doing, everyone knows the game. There isn't some wow newfangled thing out there. Everyone sets ball screens. Everyone has backdoor action. Everybody has these things. To your larger point, it's about preparing those squads to handle maybe the twists, but really just remembering the concepts that they've seen.
Yeah, I mean, we have run some of the same offenses as when I was playing at Geneseo. We still run them.
Right.
And it's because they're effective, and it's because they're effective against many styles of defense. And
And it's about execution, right? If you
And
don't
it's about
execute, you
execution.
lose.
Yes. And at the end of the day, basketball is not a hard sport. It is a very, very simple sport. It's about angles. It's about speed. It's about decision making. And, you know, the other side of, well, how do you win at the high level in the game of basketball is the preparation and the execution of the players. And, you know, part of our job as coaches is to get them to execute at a high level. And I think we are doing that right now.
So what was the Montclair result? Because 71-49, listen, Karen's probably one of the heads-ear coaches out there. Granted, programs back in this national conversation for the first time in a while. Most of you only got 12 hours to prepare for that. I'm sure somebody was spending the week studying them on the side. Similar concepts, similar styles. What was the edge, as it were, against Montclair?
Yeah, it was very similar. You know, we did have stuff prepped for the week, but I'm also someone that, you know, I'm going to spend all my time for that Friday game, because before Friday, we did not have a game on Saturday. So I was not going to jump ahead to Saturday before we had figured out Friday. So Friday night was a late night, and we kind of divided and conquered as a coaching staff. And, you know, they're again, a really talented team, a couple really great athletes. And it was same idea, concepts. And our defensive system took away a lot of their concepts. And so they were not able to get what they normally get offensively. And that is part of our philosophy. And, you know, we made them hit some contested jump shots, which they missed, and we were able to capitalize on the other end with our strengths against their weaknesses. And again, it just came down to the players executing that stuff, and they bought into it. Even though it was a quick turnaround, they bought in. Our message was succinct. Here's what you have to do, and they went and did it.
This is a team that's got three seniors, essentially, two seniors, one upperclassman. And when you look at just the production, it's not top heavy. If that makes any sense to anybody out there, you are a pretty balanced approach. And what might scare a few people is it's a sophomore leading the team in scoring, then a graduate student, and then a junior. I.e., it's not all about those upperclassmen. And this is a heck of a lot of experience you're building, not only to take on NYU next weekend, but to move in to the next evolution of the program.
Yeah, and you know, it took us a long time to get there after COVID. It's been a long few years since then to find that balance of graduating classes, and instead of, you know, losing so many people a graduating year, to kind of just reload every year. And I think we're in that pattern right now. And I don't think I fully understand that yet. I haven't fully understood many things over the past 9 days. There just hasn't been enough time to process. But, you know, when I do take a step back and realize that we have people from all ages, all class levels contributing and getting these minutes on the floor in these important games that just gain experience to do this all over again, year after year after year. It makes me really excited to finally get back on track with our program and being at the national level.
So let's go back a little bit before we dive in more, and tell me about this season, because for most part, I think it was the beginning that caused you all to then slide under the radar. You start off 1-2, beat Rochester Tech, but then lose to Whitman, who's a tournament team, lose to Amherst, a tournament team, get a win over SUNY IT, get a win over Williams Smith, lose to Wesleyan, get a win over St. Joseph's, another tournament team, lose to Hamilton. So by the time you get to your holiday break, which is a month long, you've already dropped 4 games and you've only won 4 games. You got to come back from the holiday break as a 4-4 team. You probably are all reevaluating things, I'm suspecting, at that point. And more importantly, you haven't played a lot of basketball.
Yeah, we, you know, last summer when our roster was finalized, I really like this team, and I thought we could do something really special. And I was at lunch with my assistant, and I think it was September or so, and we were just talking about the roster and the upcoming season. And he said, "Man, you're pretty high on this team." And I said, "Yeah, I think we can be pretty pretty good. And, we knew that this year was it was the toughest schedule I have ever seen a Geneseo program have since I've been here as a player.
That's impressive.
And that was a little bit on purpose, and a little bit it just happened. I did not know when we went to the Oswego tournament that Amherst was going to be there. I knew the Western New England tournament was going to be good. I didn't know we'd be playing, St. Joe's, who was in the tournament this year.
Yep.
We opened up with an exhibition at Lemoyne, who's Division I. We played Binghamton in December for an exhibition. So I just thought, man, if I'm going to do this, let's do it. Let's learn these tough lessons early, which we did. In that 4-4 moment, we had to learn quickly some things. We were not finishing games. We were not winning games in the fourth quarter, and not even the fourth quarter. The last 5 minutes of the game, we were blowing it, and we did the work to win those games in February. We went through and we dissected those moments, and I put them in practice in situations and said, how are we gonna win this game? And credit to the student athletes, because they were willing to really look themselves in the mirror and say, yeah, we botched that. And we have to not botch that if we want to be where we want to be. And what did that result in is, down the stretch in February, we were winning close games. The championship game, it was a 3-point game, back and forth in the last 3 minutes. And we won that game because we had the experience and the growth in those moments. Even this past weekend, I know that the point spread was a pretty good margin, but doesn't mean it was easy. They were still swinging in that fourth quarter, and we had to learn how to handle those situations to win the game. So, if my assistant actually said to me on the bus yesterday, she was like, would you have thought when we were 4-4 that we would be going into this weekend? I thought I probably would have said no. I probably would have said no at any point in the year, just because that's not really me. But we did the work to earn this shot for a Sweet 16 trip, and I couldn't be prouder of them.
If nobody's done the math yet, you have been 20-2 since that 4-4 start. Your 2 losses are to Brockport by 1 at home at the end of January and by 13 on the road in the middle of February. Albeit, no disrespect, some of the conference maybe wasn't the biggest challenge, but you had to take on a St. John Fisher squad, granted on a new head coach, but that could make them even more dangerous than usual. And you beat them by 18 in the conference semis before knocking off Brockport by 3 in the title game. Again, 4-4 kind of, I know admittedly probably had you slip off my radar. 20-2 since. Stunning.
Yeah, I think some of those conference games where, the opponent's records might not be as glamorous as some others, we made a conscious effort to approach those games and play in those games at the same high level as if we were going to play an NYU or if we were going to go play Brockport in the championship game. And I think part of that approach, a big piece of our success was that approach to, I don't care if that team has won 5 games all year. If you don't start the game how I want you to start the game, I'm going to call a timeout and rip into you in the first 3 minutes. And and I did that in a couple of those games. And it's so easy, I've learned as a coach and as a player, to know you're going to go into a game and win and just be okay with some of the mistakes you're making, because at the end of the day the scoreboard is probably going to end up in your favor anyway. And that just was a commitment I made to myself and to my team this year, that I would not let them be complacent in that way. And there was a quote that we used one day after we had won a decent amount of games, and it said something along the lines of, success breeds complacency and complacency breeds failure. And that was kind of what we lived by through a stretch in January, is that, hey, we're winning games, but we are not going to become complacent. And that started with me at the top. I had to make sure I held them accountable for that.
I don't know if you've looked at the scouting report yet, but
I haven't watched a thing. We got home at 4:30 yesterday. I missed a big family party Saturday, so I hung out with family last night, and I was asleep by 8 p.m.
I get it.
But I
get it.
I know.
NYU's ahead. Haven't lost since 2023. Meg Barber's team is clicking. might be the best way to say that. Again, I know you haven't looked at a lot, but how do you approach an opponent like an NYU who you know is probably on a level?
Sorry, Dave.
Oh, I know. I get the lighting. It happens. On a level that almost no one has really seen in their season.
I think you have to put a lot of respect towards them. They're a very talented team. My first thought was, what a great opportunity for us. I don't think we've ever, certainly since I've been here, in any capacity, we've ever played the number one team in the country. So we've certainly played some higher ranked teams, but I don't think we've played number one. And what an awesome opportunity.
Sure.
We've always, throughout our whole playoff couple weeks here, I've made it a really big point for the team to not look towards too far in the future. Just let's look at the game right in front of us. And our motto's kind of been, let's just fight for one more day together. And I said that Saturday between quarters, going into the fourth quarter. And, that day we had a comfortable lead, but you just never know in those fourth quarters. 10 minutes is a long time, and players' seasons are on the line, so they're gonna play hard. And I looked at my team and I said, how hard are you willing to work for just one more day together? And can you do that for 10 minutes? And they did that, and we got another week together, and that's going to be our approach Friday too. I'm guessing that our game plan is going to have to be tweaked a bit based on, what we've done in the past couple weeks, just because they are such a talented team. Our defense tends to be really, we defend as a group of five all the time. We don't play one-on-one defense. We defend as a group of five. And we might have to play a little bit more one-on-one defense on Friday night. And my team, if I tell my team to do that, they will show up and do it to the best of their ability. And I'm excited to just be on this stage and show us off a little bit. And I've said all year, I've said it for several years to my team, I am not afraid of losing any game. I'm not afraid of losing. I'm afraid of how we could lose. And let's just make sure that whether it's this weekend, whether it's the national championship game, whether it's the opening game of your season, if you're going to lose, let's make sure you're okay with how you lost,
Fair.
Not because you gave one away.
Hope you enjoy that bus ride. It's a very familiar one. Your trip to D.C. and your trip to Gettysburg is going to be almost identical. I hope you have comfortable buses.
Oh yeah, we do. We are so set. Snacks, movies, games, you take it. We are set. We're old pros.
Well, I wish you luck on the trip. Gettysburg's a beautiful place to visit, albeit a little bit, I will admit it's a little strange when you realize you're literally on campus right next to the battlefield. But it's also incredible in the same. So enjoy it. I look forward to seeing you there. Take care of yourself, and good luck on the Scout at the very least. In the meantime, we always give the guests the final word. Any final thoughts you want to share with those who may be tuned in?
Yeah, I wanted to shout out my three seniors. My Kylie Snow, Mackenzie Regal, and Brianna Beebe. They have been just such great leaders this year. Kylie and Kenzie have done incredible things for us on the floor in leadership. They have been willing to have the hard conversations with me, with their teammates. They have been the best leaders I've ever had as a head coach. And Mackenzie's had an incredible season. She's one of the best point guards in the country. And, Kylie, 1,000 points. They have done everything that you could achieve as a basketball player. But they are just even better people. And that's saying something. And then, Bree, our other senior, she doesn't play a lot of minutes, but we needed her to show up for 5 minutes each game this weekend. And she did some things really special. On Friday night, she played 5 minutes, in the third quarter against Catholic. She came up with a huge offensive rebound off a free throw that resulted in 2 more free throws for us. And on Saturday, she played another 5 minutes. And, I think it was the first quarter, second quarter, she hit a huge 3 at the end of the first quarter to cut the lead to 1 after we were down big in the first quarter. And that momentum really just sent us on our way. So that's a kid who, when we need her to go in the game, she shows up and did exactly what we needed her to do. And those minutes she gave us won us 2 games this weekend. So she deserves all the praise as well.
Really cool. I can't wait to see what your team looks like on the floor. Thank you for the time. Safe travels. Get some rest. And we'll look forward to catching up.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for coming on. Melissa Pulaski joining us here on the Hoopsville Hotline, her alma mater. Dancing into the second weekend. Got a big test with NYU ahead. But, hey, it's the NCAA tournament. Anything's possible, folks. We'll take a break. When we come back, we'll keep talking women's basketball. We'll go out to Wisconsin, talk to the Titans of Oshkosh. 3 WIAC teams into the second round on the women's side. We have time to talk to one of them. You listen to Hoopsville, presented by DIII Hoops. Back with more after this.
For the love of the game. But for those of us who are Division III student athletes, it's more than that. A lot more.
Sure, the game is important. But as we work so hard to build both mind and body, it's more about team.
That is why NCAA Division III teamed up with Special Olympics. And in giving the gift of sport to those for whom it seemed an impossible dream, we are working to make this a better world.
Help us keep that dream alive.
You can make a difference.
We are the coaches of women's basketball. We are leaders and teachers, dreamers and winners. We are professionals who conduct ourselves ethically and with integrity. We place the education, safety, and well-being of the athletes we coach above all else and teach them the fundamental values they need to succeed in life. We are coaches united for the good of our game and those who play it. We are the WBCA.
We've got more schools than Division I, more fans than Division II, and more upsets than March Madness. There's nearly 850 programs with over 11,000 games leading to 2 national championships. And we've been covering it all for over 2 decades. From Eastern to Occidental, from Puget Sound to Piedmont, from Southwestern to the University of New England, and from Hope to Calvin. Nobody covers Division III basketball like we do. We're D3Hoops.com at www.D3Hoops.com.
The National Association of Basketball Coaches is the nation's premier professional development and advocacy organization for basketball coaches at every level. The NABC strives to serve as the voice for coaches on national issues while advancing the core value of leadership, service, advocacy, education, and inclusion. To learn more about the NABC and to become a member, visit NABC.com and follow the NABC on social media at NABC1927. That's NABC.com or NABC1927 on social media.
Responsibility is being accountable for your words and actions, first and foremost. It also is an obligation to be a positive influence in the communities around you. Being in a D3 program, you're going to have lots of different opportunities. You're not just an athlete, you're also involved in student life. Your academics are extremely important. We give a lot of our student athletes responsibilities right from the start by giving them leadership opportunities, by having them engage in the community, be a positive influence. That's being a responsible person.
There are over 480,000 college athletes. Only 2% will go pro.
That means over 470,000 will not get a shoe contract. No autographs. No private jets. No fan clubs. No Hall of Fame inductions. Instead, they will walk away with something much more valuable.
I did receive a non-athletic scholarship upon entering school.
I got the presidential scholarship, which was huge for me.
I think there's more opportunities for academic scholarships in Division III.
I did receive academic scholarships. Just being involved on campus, being a leader, all those things combined kind of get me recognized. It's a great experience for me.
For the love of the game. But for those of us who are Division III student athletes,
well, that's the gremlin I just found. One of our ad breaks likes to reload, and when it does, it kicks off my mic. Well, that explains a few things. Welcome back to Hoopsville, everybody. Hope you are enjoying the show. I'm your host, Dave McHugh, on this matinee edition at the lunch hour here on Hoopsville because, well, one of my bosses in another job decided to schedule a meeting for tonight that, you got to attend. So here we are midday with the show. If you've got questions for us, you can try and contact us via Twitter. It's having its moments coming back at D3 Hoopsville. We're also on Threads and Instagram, but admittedly very hard to follow those avenues on air, but we'll do our best. We're also on Facebook, where we're live simulcasting the show, and we are on YouTube, where we're live simulcasting the show. You can interact with us there, or email us, hoopsville@d3sports.com. 3 WIAC teams are dancing in the NCAA tournament. What's guaranteed is there won't be 3 in the next round, because the quarterfinals feature at least 2 of them will have to face each other. The one who doesn't is the Oshkosh Titans. The Titans get Illinois Wesleyan. I'm not sure which is better because the way the Titans knocked off Trine in the second round, they suddenly look a lot scarier than maybe many realized. Joining us on the Hoopsville hotline to talk all about is Brad Fisher of the Oshkosh Titans. He's got to take on the Illinois Wesleyan Titans. Oh, I see how this works. Brad, welcome to the show. Good to see you.
Good to see you again, Dave.
First off, congratulations. Heck of a weekend. You get past Calvin, 61-52, and then a pretty darn good Bethel team, 59-49. I mean, Calvin's a team that had knocked off Hope and Trine and earned their way in. Certainly had to realize that they were going to be formidable, even if maybe a little bit of debutantes in this. Bethel, though, is coming out having given Gustavus Adolphus its only loss of the season so far. It wasn't exactly going to be an easy weekend at your place.
No, when you have been in the top 10 all year and won, I think, maybe the best league in the country, you kind of feel like maybe you'll get a 4 seed that maybe hasn't played teams at our level yet. Instead, you get Calvin, who just gives Trine's first loss in over 2 months and knocks Hope out of probably an at-large bid. So they're coming in on a high, and really all Calvin's losses this year were Hope, Trine, Illinois Wesleyan. They've played stout. They played all the best teams between Calvin and Bethel. So we saw 2 really, really high-level teams this weekend, and we like to think surviving it puts us in a good spot to be prepared for what's coming this week.
I would also say surviving the end of the season, because you guys were rolling for a while. You didn't suffer your first loss until the end of January against River Falls. Seemed to get back on the horse, winning 4 straight, but the end was kind of like a old airplane engine, kind of spitfiring a little bit. You went 2-3, losing to La Crosse, Stout, and Whitewater, but beating Eau Claire and La Crosse, all in a span of 5 games, and that loss to La Crosse was overtime. I know you well. After such a successful first 90% of the season, you were probably a little frustrated on how the last 5 played out. What was going on, and kind of what was the internal temperature at the time?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a little of both. I don't know if frustrated is probably the right word. I mean, our league sent 5 teams to the NCAA tournament, so once we'd made the turn, we're in first place in that league and feeling pretty good. And we're talking about a loss at La Crosse that was in overtime. They're an NCAA tournament team. The good part was the league was wrapped up going into that finale at Stout. So not that it wasn't super important, but we did a couple things I think a little bit different than we might have, knowing that we had a couple big weeks coming ahead, and the conference championship game was a great game. We lost by 3 in a battle to another team that's in the Sweet 16. So I thought we played well. I don't think we played as well as we were maybe before that, but also just the grind of taking everyone's best shot when you're 17-0 and going on the road on a Saturday, leaving at 8 a.m. and knowing you're going to get someone's best. And I think we learned a lot about the level of intensity that it takes to sustain that. But I think there was part of us that was a little bit worn out from just the battles and the grinds of our league. So I think we got a little refresh this weekend of seeing some teams that, don't know us quite as well, and vice versa. It's a little more fun to get ready for somebody when everything's new, and we get ready for the same teams time after time. I think there's a little monotony to that. So it was fun to see some new faces in our gym, and it's exciting to prepare for another team in Illinois Wesleyan that we have not seen and I've never played against.
Well, that's certainly fascinating. We'll get into that in a moment. To quickly recap the WIAC, I think a lot of times I'm not surprised by a late conference loss by a good team. I've, on many occasions in my top 25 on the men's side, not really dinged a team for that, even haven't pulled a number one vote from a team for that. Your Stout game, the start conference play on January 4th was a 10-point game. Your Whitewater game on the road was a 7-point overtime game. You then played them again and went double overtime to 8 points. So, yeah, none of these results were maybe surprising. I think more along the lines for me was usually you get that loss and it wakes the team up like, oh, no, we really do have to pay attention to the Scout. And so losing 3 times in 5, I think, is what startled me a little bit. Is there a conversation about, hey, and this is me, wake up, or you gotta remember we gotta take this a little bit more seriously? Or to your larger point there, the fact you're playing a Calvin team and a Bethel team and whoever else that you're not familiar with kind of just in itself kind of refocuses everyone.
Yeah, I mean, we've got a really veteran group, and if you go look at the losses we had, it's tie game with 3 minutes to go, overtime, and it's not like those are the first close ones. So we won a bunch of close games to that point too. So over the course of the year, you get in enough of those games against good teams, you're going to go both directions. And I think we've got a veteran team who went to the Sweet 16 last year. We've got a couple seniors that have been to the Elite 8. So we've been in a lot of these situations. We always feel like when the calendar turns to March, we'll be ready for whoever's on the schedule and on the bracket, and we'll get things figured out. So I don't feel like there was ever a point where in any of these where we felt like things were off kilter. And I think that piece of experience was a huge part of that. And the goal for our team was to get ourselves back to the NCAA tournament. We left Maine last year with a 2-point loss, feeling like we could have done some things different and potentially been playing in the Final Four. So for us, this year was a lot about the NCAA tournament and where we were at, and could we come in healthy? And that was a big part of how we wanted to finish the season too, make sure everybody that we needed, which is everybody, was available, and they are, and we got ourselves a home weekend. It's always going to be hard up here to host a sectional just with our geography and coming this far north. So we can get the first weekend at home and give ourselves a chance to get weekend number 2. We feel like mission accomplished. So now that's kind of where we're sitting. So honestly, to this point, everything that's happened so far, I think it just got us ready for trying to play our best right now.
Yeah, lost to Smith, who got to the national championship game by 2 in Brunswick, Maine, at Bowdoin. I think WIAC teams on a side are just automatically penciled in for Brunswick. I don't know. There's 2 going this year. There's you guys last year. Have you shared notes to your brethren at Whitewater and Stout going, hey, here's where you should go, here's what you should see, etc.?
Are they at Scranton this year?
Oh, no, you're right. They're at Scranton.
I think they got,
sorry.
Yeah, I think they both got.
Such a great story, and I completely botched my pods.
That's all right. Conference game at Scranton for those 2 this week.
I find it. Listen, what you said at the beginning honestly surprises me. You've never played Illinois Wesleyan. I'll be blunt. How?
No, we've played everyone else. I mean, I think our location is unique because there's not much north of us, and it's hard for us to play Illinois and Minnesota teams because if they want to play someone like us, they can play Whitewater on the way up. If they want to play someone like us from Minnesota, they can grab Stout, Eau Claire, River Falls, La Crosse, and save a couple hours of drive. So we've talked to Illinois Wesleyan about scheduling, and once you get over 4 hours, it's just got to work right. We've talked about tournaments and things like that, and I think we've played everyone else: Calvin, Hope, Wheaton, WashU, DePaul. It's just worked out where this is one team we haven't seen. So it'll be unique, and we couldn't be more contrasting in styles. So it'll be an interesting matchup for how they want to play versus how we want to play.
I'm kind of blown away that you 2 haven't played each other. I know where you're located, Brad. So either, no disrespect, we got to get you out of there, We got to get you.
I wish. I still need 3 games for next year. So if anybody
there we go. That's what I'm
play,
talking about.
Yeah.
By the way, Vegas is open. Just saying, Brad.
Yeah, we host. Next year we're going to Portland to get out to the West Coast because they always need teams out there. And then we host a tournament right after Christmas. That's made it a little.
That's your
bit
mistake.
tougher.
That's your mistake.
It is.
All I'm saying
we have
is
a great arena in town for that, though. So
it's a minor detail. It's a minor detail, but I think we can overlook this. I am obviously very much being tongue in cheek about this. No, that's the thing. Is this is a fascinating matchup, and the fact you haven't played each other, especially Titan vs. Titan. I mean, come on, this is writing itself. Is just tremendous. Have you been able to take a peek yet? Have you allowed yourself time to try and figure out what Maya Smith's got as a squad? Because their win over Trine was a statement.
Yeah, incredibly impressive. We played Trine back in December, so we know how good they were, and we saw them a lot getting ready for Calvin. And yeah, no, they're really good. I mean, it's an understatement. Obviously, they're 28-1. They are constant pressure. They forced a ton of turnovers on Saturday, which they do all the time. And we rely a lot on our scouts. So I've watched a lot already, and we've got a couple more days before we head down there to get everything on the table. But they're playing fast. The ball's flying, and we are the exact opposite of that. We're going to make sure we run full possessions and make sure we get good shots and take care of the ball. So there's going to be possessions where I think their style gets played, and I think we're going to be able to get some possessions where it's our style, and I think we're going to go back and forth on trying to get the other one to buy into how we each want to play. And but they're super talented, and they've got really good guards. They've got post players that aren't true post players that can attack off the dribble and shoot. They're all dangerous when they get open, and they're just going to stretch things out and make us have to guard the whole floor. And that's a challenge. I like to think we create some problems for them though too. And I know our league has gotten us ready to play really high level teams regardless of the style. So I'm excited to get down there, and especially since we haven't played, to see what this looks like.
And since you haven't played, you also haven't been to Bloomfield to see what that arena and that atmosphere is like.
Yeah.
Talk about this team. You've got a lot of upperclassmen, and while one of them's leading the way, it's really underclassmen who are kind of your bulk. Casey Valley's leading the squad, 12.1 points a game, shoots 53% from the floor. Not much of an outside threat, but she'll hit one. 80% from the free throw line, which makes her really dangerous. 8.5 rebounds a game. She gets certainly her fair share of blocks. She's the upper class. She's that senior fifth year that you've got. But then it's Sammy Beyer and Kate Hummel and Avery Poole, all underclassmen at 8-10 points a game. They may not pull down a lot of rebounds, but man, they can shoot the ball well. They can divvy the ball out pretty well. That's a nice kind of yin and yang you got going.
Yeah, we really like our team, obviously. I mean, everyone that's in it, I'm sure, says the same thing, but we feel like we've got really good balance. We've got a great combination of upperclassmen, seniors that have been doing this, and then juniors down to freshmen who made a huge contribution, our freshman of the year this weekend. So we feel like we've got a little bit of everything. I think our guards have done a great job. We had 3 all-conference guards, which I've never had in my time. And Sammy comes off the bench and is our second leading scorer. So, we feel really good about the balance of our team. Casey was in foul trouble against Bethel the other night. I don't even know what she finished with minutes. It was under 20. And for us to be able to beat them with her essentially spending most of the game on the bench was a huge testament to where our team is at. And we've just done a really good job. And it's been now 5 years in a row where we haven't really had anyone average over 12, 13 points a game. It's kind of been between 12 and 6 or even 4 and 5, and those being a consistent, 6 points here, 8 points there. The other night, I think we had 2 in double digits, but then we had 2 6s and 2 8s. And I think we just do a good job of balancing the floor and making people have to worry about a lot of different things and not having to rely on one person to have a big night, or if they get in foul trouble is a huge advantage for us. And Illinois Wesleyan presents some of the same problems. They score more points than we do. They play a higher possession game, but I think teams right now that that have multiple people that you've got to worry about are the biggest battle, because someone's going to have a bad night, someone's going to get in foul trouble. So I think after that, what do you got left? And I think our team is willing to play any type of game and feel like we can get 5 people on the floor that can score enough points and really defend you hard, which is kind of what we're all about.
Quick aside, you talk about the underclassmen. One that jumps out at me, because you have all these Wisconsin, students. Shocking, right? You're a Wisconsin State school. I'm shocking you have white Wisconsin players. There's one from, and I know she's only played in 7 games, but I gotta shine a light. One from Kuwait City, Kuwait.
Yeah.
It is Jada Alisa.
Jada Alisa. Yep.
She's 6'1", by the way. She's a center, again, only 7, and freshman, business marketing major. How did you get her to Oshkosh? There's got to be something they summer on the lake or something.
Yeah, and Jada's going to be a great player, and we're super excited. She has not played a ton of games, mostly because of our experience in Casey being a fifth year and playing that position. So if we're back on this show in 2 years, I'm going to be talking about, I have a feeling, and her contributions. But her family is originally from, her mom's originally from Wisconsin. Her dad actually played at Oshkosh back 25. I think we're at 25 years old. I don't want to age him. And her mom played at Whitewater. So they live over in Kuwait. She came back in the summers to play club ball here in the States that she could get linked up to come back to college here. And her dad's the athletic director at the American High School in Kuwait. So, so she's a long ways from her family now, which is hard. I think she's having a really good time. A lot of the things we talked about in the recruiting process, we've been able to deliver here, giving her a chance to cut a net and get to the NCAA tournament. And she's going to be a great player for us.
Getting used to the cold again.
Yeah. And I never went on a recruiting trip there. If anyone's wondering, we did it long distance, but
I had a feeling.
But we're excited to have her. She's going to be great. And it's been a great experience for our team too. I think the more people we can put around our girls that give them a different perspective on the world and on life is part of the gift of playing on a team. And
that's pretty darn cool. I'm looking forward to seeing how that all plays out. I think Zoom and all those things certainly make being away from home a little bit easier, but I can't imagine being that far. But at least it's working out. Brad, I'm dipping into a little bit of a knowledge base that I have. I will not give anything away, but you've had so much success at Oshkosh. To say your name has popped up for bigger, I don't know if they're better, but bigger things would be an understatement. What is it about Oshkosh? What it is about your situation that just keeps you there? Because, by the way, no complaints. Love that you're there.
It just gets hard when you build something and you're so invested in it. I mean, the roots just go deeper into the ground, right? So it's always like, for this year, it was Casey and Allison Forney and these seniors that we're trying to take one more step with, or it's, freshmen and sophomores that you spent 2 years recruiting and you want to get them to senior day and see their growth. So it gets harder and harder to look, and it's always one more class and in one more year, and let's get this next class through, and then maybe we can think about it. And here I am in year 13, and it's just hard to think about all the work we put in to build the program. When we took it over, they were 6-19 and hadn't been in an NCAA tournament in 6 years. And now we've gone to 10-11. This is our 7th Sweet 16. You're not guaranteed to be able to do that anywhere else, regardless of the level or how much they pay you or what city you're in. You need a lot of factors in your favor to be able to be successful, and then also be able to recruit kids that you really want to coach. And I don't think every school allows you to do that. Like, there's certain places you got to recruit a different type of kid to compete. And here I can recruit kids that I really like to coach, that are great students, that enjoy their experience and are really selfless. Like, at a program like ours, there's a lot of players like Jada that have played 7, 8, 10 games this year that were all state players in high school, that are kind of waiting their turn and biding their time and trying to get better, so that when we're ready for them, that they're ready to go. And it takes a special kid to sit for a year or two and watch other people play before they get their time on the floor. So we have this perfect little culture right now for me and for our players and our staff, where everyone loves coming to the gym, and it's just hard to think about trying to do that somewhere else. And that's not to say it'll never happen, but to ask the question why still, I think that's kind of it in a nutshell.
No, it's great. I appreciate it. That's a wonderful insight, and I really appreciate it. By the way, question was spurred on by, I noticed that Penn men's basketball job is open, and the first thought I always have is, that's a place D3s like to land. And so you start wondering on both sides where D3 coaches might leave D3 for. Brad, really appreciate the time. Good luck this weekend. It's a bonkers first game. And if you can get through it, my hat's to you. My hat to everybody if you can get through this weekend, obviously. As always, we give the coach the final word. Any final thoughts you want to share with those who may be tuned in?
Yeah, thank you, Dave. But also, this is a great time, I think, to thank all of our wives and coaches' husbands, significant others, families, like your family, everybody. Like, we're in month 5 now of this season, if you go back to the start of practice. And I'm really grateful for my wife and all the significant others of my coaches. My assistant had triplets last year. So her husband has got 2-year-old triplets at home that he's trying to corral to allow her to be here for us. So I'm just really appreciative of our families and my wife specifically of supporting and understanding what this time of year is like. And we're going to get back on a bus again on Wednesday and have another weekend that we can't do something fun. And I really appreciate it. And I think all of us coaches could always do better in showing the proper appreciation for what our significant others do. So thanks for giving me the chance to thank them all out loud, because we would not be able to do this without them. Absolutely. Well said. Terrific. Yeah, families are a big deal. Mine is getting used to me not being at home at least one night of a weekend for the last few weekends. So I get it. Hey, Brad, thank you for the time. Take care of yourself. Look forward to catching up with you down the road. Thanks a lot, Dave. Brad Fisher joining us here on the Hoopsville Hotline. He's right. It's our families that certainly allow us to do all this that we love, and we appreciate their support. We'll take another break. When we come back, we're going to go talk to Ryan Scott about the idea of the 2020 tournament. Who did he think would have won? He wrote it all down 5 years ago, and I have a feeling he has a little bit of buyer's remorse. We'll see how much he bought in to some of the teams. You're listening to Hoopsville, presented by D3 Hoops. Back with more after this. Division III men's and women's basketball players build skills and characteristics that set themselves up to win in life. How do they translate those skills when the ball stops bouncing? They join Dream Team, the network built by and for athletes who want to leverage their competitive advantage in careers and business. Find your post-basketball calling, your next team, and learn how to win big at DreamTeamWins.com. That's DreamTeamWins.com.
We've got more schools than Division I, more fans than Division II, and more upsets than March Madness. There's nearly 850 programs with over 11,000 games leading to 2 national championships. And we've been covering it all for over 2 decades. From Eastern to Occidental, from Puget Sound to Piedmont, from Southwestern to the University of New England, and from Hope to Calvin. Nobody covers Division III basketball like we do. We're D3Hoops.com at www.d3hoops.com.
I believe sportsmanship is a mutual admiration and respect for your fellow competitors. We all go through a lot to reach the point where we compete against one another. It's important to realize that. So once we're finally on the field or on the court or on the starting block, we look at each other as fellow human beings and not just competitors. Being able to recognize the hard work that other athletes are putting in creates a more positive and inclusive environment.
We are calling you, all of you. We are calling all Division III schools to join our cause.
It's on us to start the change. It's on us to be the change. It's on us. It's on Division III. It's on all of us to stop sexual assault.
Comprehensive learning is being able to adapt to experiences and apply the things that I learned. Being an athlete and juggling academics helped me grow as a person, and things that I've learned, I was able to apply it in another field, putting them into everyday life. Developing comprehensive learning helped me prioritize certain things to make sure I get to where I want to be.
Coach of the Year, Administrator of the Year, All-America Team, Wade Trophy. The WBCA doesn't just honor coaches, but players, administrators, and much more. The WBCA strives to honor those who have contributed to the advancement of women's basketball. Celebrate the present, honor the past, look to the future.
For the love of the game. But for those of us who are Division III student athletes, it's more than that, a lot more.
Sure, the game is important, but as we work so hard to build both mind and body, it's more about team.
That is why NCAA Division III teamed up with Special Olympics, and in giving the gift of sport to those for whom it seemed an impossible dream, we are working to make this a better world.
Help us keep that dream alive.
You can make a difference.
Welcome back to Hoopsville, everybody, as we are rolling along on a matinee edition, despite social media trying to not be cooperative. That said, our production's being cooperative today, and I want to thank it. If you're seeing an audio delay, by the way, this cropped up at some of the basketball games this weekend. I've learned more about it, which makes me feel better. It's not necessarily on our side. We'll figure it out, I promise. But if you're seeing a lip sync issue, I apologize. We don't know where the problem is, but hopefully you'll get it resolved at some point in time, because it even popped up at some of the other games. Granted, there could have been other factors. You got questions for us? You can try us on social media, especially Twitter, which is having some issues today, at D3 Hoopsville. You can always email us, hoopsville@d3sports.com, or join us where we're live simulcasting the show on Facebook and on YouTube. We will certainly try and keep track and answer questions there whenever possible. Hey, 5 years ago, can you believe it? It's been 5 years since the 2020 NCAA tournament got shut down on the men's side, heading into what would have been the round of 30. No, heading into the round of 16. And on the women's side, obviously, they were going to get to the Final Four by the end of the weekend. Men were going on to Atlanta with the championship game there and a bunch of weeks later. So it was a little bit of an augmented schedule. Ryan Scott had this smart idea to, within weeks or days or whatever it was of that tournament on the men's side, kind of go through and go, how do I think this would have played out? And he went and wrote it all down. And most of us did not read it until now, including maybe him, even though he knew the answers, to see what he thought would have happened in that NCAA tournament. Remember, this was a year that Yeshiva was going to take on Randolph-Macon. We had some other upsets like Penn State, Harrisburg, and others that were certainly making the tournament a little bit more interesting. I wonder how much it stands up looking back on it a few years. I do encourage you to go to d3hoops.com to take a look at his article. We will not give it all away here, but we will talk about a few things. Ryan, welcome to the show. I know you've been eagerly waiting for this one to pop out.
Yeah. I sent it to Pat 5 years ago, and he said, we're just putting it in a folder and not touching it. And so I hadn't read it till this morning when it went up. So it's kind of fun to go back and see the names of the players, especially that maybe you had forgotten, and just remember those. I mean, it was going to be a really amazing Sweet 16. Like, it was one with just a whole ton of really strong teams.
Admittedly, I've not read every word. I scanned through it because I didn't have time. I want to sit down and really enjoy this, because I love how even the bits I started to read, I'm like, wow, this has a fascinating perspective. And, okay, I got what he goes there. I will start with this. This, again, you and I got to see Yeshiva at Johns Hopkins during that controversial weekend. And I know you and I left there going, okay, this is not what we expected. Maybe they're better than we thought. I'm going to say this. I don't know how much you agree or not. There was a lot of hoopla behind Yeshiva, and buying into them made a lot of sense. They're going to Randolph-Macon, and I thought, you know what? I think they can beat Macon and continue on. This is a really good team. I don't think I overbought on Yeshiva. In hindsight, on what we learned about Macon later, I know full well I was under buying or underappreciating Randolph Macon and Josh Merkel. Your thoughts on what that matchup probably would have been in reality?
I mean, so we need to point out, and I think it's probably fair to say, and a lot of Yeshiva fans would as well, is even though that was only Terrell's sophomore year, I do think that they were playing better than any of the other teams.
Absolutely
just
agree.
in terms of how well they were executing the offense. Like, if they were going to go far in the tournament, that was the year to do it.
Yes.
And Randolph Macon is, 2 years before their national championship.
Right.
They're very, very good. And it was a lot of the same players, but there's a chance that they might not have been at the level that we all knew them to be at. But the way that I wrote it in the piece, I think I was a little too quick to pick Yeshiva in a game that would not have written the same way, given some hindsight there.
Knowing how you reacted after Macon won the championship and that season, I remember you just thinking, I probably should have thought this through more.
Well, even that year, right? I picked them to lose the WPI in the Elite Eight, which seemed like a reasonable pick before we watched those games where they, that was the closest game in the whole tournament. It was a 16-point win.
Right.
They just steamrolled through everybody. And so now we kind of know not to underestimate what Randolph Macon can do. But at the time, it seemed like a reasonable pick.
Whitworth was crossing the country to play, I think, at Swarthmore. I'm actually calling the bracket up to remind myself. Yeah, they were going to play at Swarthmore. Brockport was going to host Tufts. St. Thomas. Everybody remember St. Thomas? Not Texas, Minnesota, folks. The original St. Thomas. They were going to play St. John's in what was going to be awesome. Like, it was going to officially be the last game. Pomona Pitzer at Elmhurst. Mount Union was hosting Wittenberg. Macon was hosting Yeshiva. Hobart was at Christopher Newport, which I totally forgot about. Could have gotten over to Newport to see that. Wash U was taking on North Central at North Central. That was the lineup on the men's side, Ryan. And I don't want to give your article away too much because, again, I want people to go read it. But how did you see this kind of matriculating, at least in that opening weekend? Or not opening weekend,
some
that
of the things to remember, Swarthmore was coming in. I think they were the #1 team in the country coming in, right?
Yeah, I believe they were, yep.
They had Nate Schaefer and Zach Odell was their senior year. Yep. The 2 All-American post players. Like that, I mean, picking them to come out of that quadrant, not really a big surprise, right?
No.
One of the other games to think about, that North Central Wash U game, probably the winner of that is the one I would pick through from that side of the bracket, because that's the North Central team that had all 6 seniors on it, right? That was the Connor Reardon and Capoletti and these guys that were just really dominant as seniors, and they kind of seemed like they had dialed it in there for the tournament. Kind of the way Wisconsin Lutheran's playing right now. Like, it's very reminiscent that the regular season was maybe not what you expected it to be, but they were really dialed in. And then playing Wash U, that was a Jack Nolan, Justin Hardy team that had just gotten well, I guess they lost the big man to injury, but they were really kind of rounding into form.
Yep.
And so that would have been a really great matchup. But the Tommy Johnny one is the one that was really interesting. So I picked St. John's in that game because they had just won the conference championship game pretty handily, right? And they were a lot bigger. If you remember, that St. Thomas team was really guard heavy. They had the 2 really good guards in the backcourt. And I just felt like the size of St. John's was going to end up winning. Although I will say, I mentioned this to John Tower, I don't know, maybe 18 months after I wrote the thing. And, he's a pretty mild-mannered, very reasonable sort of guy. And he just kind of stopped and he just said, we would not have lost that. And that's another one, in retrospect, it's the same starting lineup that won 10 games in Division I the very next year, right?
Well, and also had thumped the Johnnies earlier in the season.
Right. And so maybe that was a poor pick, but that you gotta go with your gut at that moment. And I do think that is the best St. John's team I have ever seen. They have a lot of good teams in a lot of years, but I feel like that was their chance to do it.
I agree. By the way, to your Swarthmore point, I remember that program got to the Final Four 2 years, 2 times, I should say, after that.
Right.
That was an absolutely bonkers team that they tried to hold on to.
Yeah.
Anyway, I don't want to give away too much. I just wanted to have you come on and quickly dip your toe in the water. You got to go read it, everybody. It's a great read. Even if we look back at it in hindsight and go, oh, I don't know now. But that's the whole point. 5 years later, we get another look at it. Quick, your thoughts while we got you on opening weekend in Division III basketball. What a weekend, huh?
Yeah, it's pretty awesome. We had 6 schools that won games for the first time ever in the tournament. 3 of them are still playing.
Yeah.
So they won 2 games over the weekend. Really awesome. I'm glad Redlands came through for me in Western New England. Those are kind of some upset picks that I had that I'm really happy that those teams
Well,
came
some
through.
others
The other
didn't.
one, I was at F&M, Catholic, man. I saw them play the first weekend of the season. I was like, this team is in midseason form, but they also seemed like a team that was, they had a ceiling, right? That was
Right.
maybe like 20th.
And I think Drew exposed that
getting
ceiling,
up to 15. Right? Because it's a lot of seniors, a lot of guys who are not going to make mistakes. They're going to execute a game plan, but it didn't seem like they were like, jump off the floor stars. But game plan they came in with for those 2 games, they executed like crazy. If they play that way, they can go the whole way. I mean, they're good enough. If they're playing, hitting the rebounds like they did, they're a little undersized maybe for when they really get down to the final rounds. But like I was super impressed with that. And of course, we got a whole bunch of good games this weekend. I'm going to be up at NYU for that pod, at least on Friday night. So
Cool.
I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, it should be fun. I'll be at Gettysburg on the women's side. Got to pay the bills, but I'm also looking forward to it. I get to see the number 1 team in the country. But the fact Catholic handled Randolph-Macon from tip to finish was pretty darn impressive. So certainly take note. Aaron Kelly coming up here in a little bit. We'll talk to him more about that. Hey, Ryan, appreciate your quick time. We'll enjoy reading the article and get some rest before the weekend.
Yeah, thanks. You too.
Ryan Scott joining us here on the Hoopsville Hotline. Appreciate him doing so. And we'll take a quick break. When we come back, we'll switch to the men's side. We'll start with Mary Washington. The other upsets here coming from the Eagles, kind of reminiscent of a previous Eagles squad on a different head coach, kind of surprising everybody. The difference was this one completely came out of nowhere. They were below 500, and entering the NCAA tournament, they're now above 500. We'll talk to Coach coming up. You're listening to Hoopsville, presented by D3 Hoops. So much more ahead on this matinee edition. The National Association of Basketball Coaches is the nation's premier professional development and advocacy organization for basketball coaches at every level. The NABC strives to serve as the voice for coaches on national issues while advancing the core value of leadership, service, advocacy, education, and inclusion. To learn more about the NABC and to become a member, visit NABC.com and follow the NABC on social media at NABC1927. That's NABC.com or NABC1927 on social media.
Something I discovered in myself is that if I have a goal, then I can accomplish it.
It's a well-rounded experience.
At a Division III school, you primarily a student athlete, so the school is really shaped around you developing yourself as a complete individual.
It helps a lot that you have a family with your team that can guide you.
It's on us to stop sexual assault.
In any way that we can.
To get a friend home safe.
To never blame the victim.
It's on us.
To stand up.
To make our community safe for all. It's on us.
It's on us to look out for each other at parties.
It's on us.
To be more than just a bystander.
To step up and say something.
It's on us, all of us.
To stop sexual assault.
Learn how and take the pledge at itsonus.org.
We are the coaches of women's basketball. We are leaders and teachers, dreamers and winners. We are professionals who conduct ourselves ethically and with integrity. We place the education, safety, and well-being of the athletes we coach above all else and teach them the fundamental values they need to succeed in life. We are coaches united for the good of our game and those who play it. We are the WBCA.
I learned a lot of valuable lessons playing college football. I never thought about the health benefits of exercise until I actually started to talk to coaches in college. It's not only just for performance, it's for life. My coaches instilled the importance of well-being, not only building up strength, mental health, getting enough sleep, eating properly is all what it is to be healthy. I decided that I want to go on a personal trainer and share my knowledge that I obtained in college about physical and mental well-being.
For the love of the game, but for those of us who are Division III student athletes, it's more than that, a lot more.
Sure, the game is important, but as we work so hard to build both mind and body, it's more about team.
That is why NCAA Division III teamed up with Special Olympics, and in giving the gift of sport to those for whom it seemed an impossible dream, we are working to make this a better world.
Help us keep that dream alive.
You can make a difference.
We've got more schools than Division I, more fans than Division II, and more upsets than March Madness. There's nearly 850 programs with over 11,000 games leading to 2 national championships. And we've been covering it all for over 2 decades. From Eastern to Occidental, from Puget Sound to Piedmont, from Southwestern to the University of New England, and from Hope to Calvin. Nobody covers Division III basketball like we do. We're D3Hoops.com at www.d3hoops.com. Welcome back to Hoopsville, everybody, as we continue to roll along on this matinee edition. I know there were some other topics on social media, I should say, that were popping up that I do want to dive into. Later in the show, we're going to tackle some issues I've seen with Division III, understanding what neutral broadcasts are, why that's hurting Division III, in my opinion. Also, some teams who decided to or almost didn't show up for their pressers after games. Again, how I think that is hurting Division III, and this argument about whether schools can host both genders on the same weekend, i.e. NYU, and why, when this is brought up at the wrong time, it again hurts Division III. Are you sensing the topic we'll talk about at the end of the show? You listen to Hoopsville, presented by D3 Hoops. I am Dave McHugh. Welcome in. If you can get on social media, which we're trying desperately on Twitter to keep ourselves rolling, it's at D3 Hoops. So we're live simulcasting on Facebook and YouTube as well. Feel free to join us there or email us, hoopsville at d3sports.com. Email's right in front of me, so I will not miss it. Mary Washington Eagles probably had their bags packed for spring break, ready to relax a little bit at the end of the season. Christopher Newport coming to town, or no, they were going to be playing, I think that was at Salisbury, for the conference tournament. Things were going to be done and dusted, and we could move on with the season. Oops, plans have changed. They've got bags to pack because they're still dancing in the NCAA tournament. Marcus Kahn's squad entered the tournament with a below 500 record, and for the record, first time I haven't seen any complaints about that on social media. Maybe I missed them, about how AQs can be below 500 record teams. They beat Drew in the opening round and drubbed them, which stunned me. Then they beat Ramapo at Ramapo, and now they're packing up to head up to Middletown, Connecticut to play at Wesleyan against Emory. It doesn't get any easier, but that's the point of the season. Joining us to talk all about it is the head coach of the Eagles of Mary Washington. It is Marcus Kahn. And Coach, first and foremost, congratulations. Welcome back to the show. This is fun.
A lot of fun. Thank you. Thanks for having me on. Appreciate it.
This is a little reminiscent of a team that you took over the year before, made a near run to the Final Four. Unfortunately, they ran into a buzzsaw in Duncan Robinson and Williams that year and lost. And there was, they're trying to get their former coach, who was on the way out. There was a lot of controversy. There was a lot of emotion behind it. The difference with this one is they didn't have the end of the season ramping up into the NCAA tournament. You guys just all of a sudden, hello, we're here. We just knocked off Christopher Newport in the conference title game. And by the way, we beat Salisbury the night before. And anybody got room in the inn? This is amazing.
Yes, it has been a real fun couple of weeks. As I said to the team before we left Salisbury to come home, and how thankful I was that we just, regardless of what happens from here on out, we get to spend more time together. We get a couple more practices together, and kind of said the same thing to them leaving New Jersey the other night. And it's just a fun group to be around, young guys that, Yep, took us a little while to kind of figure some things out. But better late than never. And I am very thankful to be packing my bags again and getting ready to load back up on a bus and continue the season.
Not to dwell too much in the season, but maybe this is how I remember. I remember coming into the season going, okay, Mary Washington could be pretty good this year, could give Christopher Newport a bit of a run for it. And looking at the schedule, they're going to be battle tested. I'm going to quickly go through the season, folks. We don't normally do this, but let's go. You beat Kane in the opening game at Virginia Wesleyan, then lose to Virginia Wesleyan, beat Maryville in Marietta, then lost to Marietta, Randolph-Macon, North Carolina Wesleyan, then wins over Southern Virginia Wilson Averett, lose to DeSales, he didn't have a great season this year, beat Gettysburg, which really kind of jumped out everybody because that was that stretch where Gettysburg lost 4 of 5. Then immediately lost to Franklin and Marshall, lost to Catholic in conference play, beat Bridgewater, lost to Dickinson, lost to Hampton-Sydney, lost to Guilford, lost to Johns Hopkins, beat Santa Cruz, lost to Marymount, beat Salisbury, beat Eastern Mennonite, lost handily to Christopher Newport, then beat Salisbury, lost again, almost identical score to Christopher Newport, beat Salisbury again, then beat Christopher Newport. Like, you had a bonker schedule in this C2C. You have to load it, right? You don't do all that well with it, but that run in February, if we had started watching it a little bit more closely, and I'm looking back in hindsight, maybe the signs were there. Other than the results to Christopher Newport, you showed some signs there that this team was figuring it out. Am I right?
I think so. I think that it's, we're a super young team. We 7 freshmen, 5 sophomores, 2 fifth-year guys that are playing for us, and so we are a young group. And I think there were flashes of it early on. I think that Gettysburg game comes to mind. I think that our wins at home, we had 3 in a row that were we played really well against some teams that again our schedule was arranged, so give us knowing the MPI or trying to figure out the MPI thing, knowing that, hey, if we come up short in the conference, let's give ourselves a second avenue to maybe get back in the tournament, which turned out didn't go that way. So we were reliant on the AQ, knew what we had to do going into that weekend, but I also think it helped us in exposing playing the quality of teams that we played. We would get exposed for every little weakness or mistake that we made every night out. And while it's not fun to go through that, it really does allow you to get back to the drawing board, figure out what went wrong. Let's fix it this way. Again, with a young group, they are wanting to learn, willing to keep working and pushing through. And I think that, come February, getting our first road win in February.
That's the other, that was the other thing. You guys have not won on the road this year.
No. We in that stretch there were 3 literal buzzer beaters where we lost. We bobbled a rebound that DeSales ended up with to put it back in, I think with 0.2 seconds on the clock. Dickinson makes a shot with under a second on the clock. Marymount, the same thing. And we're right there, but we just couldn't get over that hump until we went out to EMU, and we're able to come out with that win. And then we got the wins at Salisbury, and then the other true road win we had was in the NCAA tournament against Ramapo. So I think that our guys have kind of figured that piece of it out. It's a good group that just kept plugging along and never got too worried about it. There seemed to be some type of February reset where we just, mentally kind of locked back into what we were doing after a tough January.
At the same time, though, Marcus, the results you just talk about, the near misses, the lack of winning on the road, getting beat around a little bit by a lot of teams in a short stretch, that can, especially with a young team, that can derail things and just take the train off the tracks. And you guys are just playing for next season at that point. The confidence could be shot. How do you not explain? That's a horrible way of saying it, but how do we grasp the concept that these guys with only 2 upperclassmen are able to keep their heads about them, not only win the C2C championship by knocking off Salisbury and Christopher Newport, but then have 2 absolutely resounding wins in the opening weekend?
Yeah, I mean, I attribute that to the players that we have and just everything you said, the resiliency that they that they have shown, the ability to come back that next day and just keep working, put that game behind them and roll with it, and let's figure it out the next time out. And I think a lot of that, the majority of the credit, not all, goes to guys like Zach Blue, who's a 5th-year guy for us, who's the guys on the team love Zach and they're going to play for Zach. And we know that we got to win and we can't let him go out, and he and Cam McCravey are rallying the troops every day at practice. Like, we got to hang in there. We got to hang in there. Let's get to conference and see what happens. And, it's kind of the same story that it's been the last couple of years. We take care of Salisbury, but CNU, they seem to have our number regardless of the lineup we put on the floor, where we played them. I hoped a couple of years ago going out to California would kind of change our luck playing in the C2C finals. They still got the best of us out there. Hosting the conference tournament last year, I thought, all right, this is the time. This is where we can get the better of them. And now they took care of business on our floor. And so it was, again, it was just a group effort mindset of, we still have something to play for. We got to win 2 games and we can still do this. And while certainly the first go around with CNU this year at their place, they handled us start to finish. The game here a week later, we took a 1-point lead with 11 minutes to go, something like that. We go up 1. Kai Robinson goes down, isn't able to finish out the game. I don't know how that game would have ended, but I think our guys took some confidence from that, hey, we are right where we're right there down the stretch of that game. We got one more shot at them. Let's just throw caution to the wind and let's just go, man. And, I think the benefit of having some young guys in situations like that is they just don't know better. And they haven't been through the wars and have that feeling of, oh, here we go again. They just put their head down, keep plugging along. And again, doing that right behind the leadership of Zach Blue has really propelled us to where we are. And then once we get by CNU, I think our guys, that was the confidence boost we needed heading into this week, being able to beat them and then go on the road.
I want to talk about your guys in a moment, but let me talk quickly about the weekend. You take on Drew, who had beaten Catholic twice late in the season, including the conference championship. I had watched them off and on for the past month, and I thought they were playing some really good basketball. You're leading that game 21-4, quarter of the way into the game. You are absolutely in control of that early on and put them so squarely on the back foot. At one point, it's 31-8 before they finally got any kind of momentum to kind of work their way back in. Of course, it's now a huge hole, and they've got to fight their way into it. What was the game plan going in? And was even that start kind of a surprise? Because you won the first half 36-18.
Yeah, I was. I mean, I was surprised at how well we jumped out. That hadn't really been even in the games that we had won. We had been more of get a feel for the game and kind of build as the games go on. But Friday night, I mean, we had talked about it going in, about the importance of defending the arc, and these guys are putting up all these 90 points in a game. What do we got to do to slow them down? We haven't been scoring 90s, so we knew we had to defend, and I think we took confidence in that. We took confidence again. We talked a lot about anybody we face. Put everybody's records aside. We know who we are and who we can be. So let's not focus on records. Let's take some confidence in the schedule that we've just been through. We've played the best of the best all year long. So let's not play into that. But that's the level at which we need to get ourselves to. We need to fall back on. We're playing CNU, we're playing Randolph-Macon, we're playing Sydney, we're playing Hopkins, Gettysburg, go through the list. And our guys were able to rise to that. And I think when we saw for us, those first couple baskets go through, we knew guarding the three-pointer against them was going to be super important. And the fact that they didn't make any in the first half, our guys kind of really were taking, we're excited about that, taking a lot of pride in that, and the way we were playing, and just kept rolling. And, all the other thing that you just don't know, having starting two freshman guards against a team that presses for 40 minutes is, oh boy, at what point do they play like freshmen? And they didn't. I mean, they played so well all game long and really handled the press well.
Well, then you go in, reminder everybody, Drew was technically the high seed there. They could not host due to a conflict with their arena, so they're not getting the home court other than being somewhat close to home playing at Ramapo. Ramapo has a tremendous game themselves in the first round, double overtime against Claremont Mudd Scripps, which kept you up a little later than probably planned, trying to scout them. And then you had the first half 37-29 against them. This is a pretty battle-tested Roadrunners squad. We saw them in Vegas. They're not bad. You've got them 20-8 at one point in that opening half. What was it about this game that seemed to work towards you guys a bit?
I think the same thing. The excitement to play, the excitement to, knowing we've got to play our best to keep playing on the road. Another opportunity to play on the road in a fun, what we thought was a fun environment. I mean, I give a lot of credit to the student section at Ramapo that they came out in force, and they were loud and getting after us, as we knew they would from watching them the night before against Claremont. And we just kind of kept falling back on, if we play our best and we're at our best, we can play with anybody. And I think that we set the tone defensively both nights early on, and got confidence that we could score. Listen, I'd wish that game the night before went to 6 overtimes. I would have felt a little bit better about going into playing Ramapo, have them worn out a little more. But it was just a great weekend where our guys, you could see it from practice to shoot-arounds to the time the ball tipped up, the confidence just building in them of what we could do, the team that we could be, that we just weren't proving over the previous 25 games. And I think that we're seeing that now.
This team, as you said, 2 upperclassmen, it's a bunch of underclassmen, and man, they're getting that experience and that time. Kyle Robinson is your leading scorer as a freshman, 13.9 points a game, 5 rebounds per contest, hands out the second most assists on the team. Jay Randall's a sophomore. He's got 13.2 points a game. By the way, both of them shoot incredibly well. Robinson 50%, Randall 57%, Robinson 42% from beyond the arc. Then you have Zach Blue, as you mentioned, your upperclassman, your graduate student, who's third on the team at 10 points a game, and then 9 points from Jaden Burgess, who's another underclassman. What's scary about this, Marcus, isn't what might happen this weekend. It's what happens the next 2 or 3 years.
Well, yeah, scary in a good way for us, I think.
Yes, I meant scary for everybody else.
Yeah. It could be. And I also think that, if I could just kind of go back for a second, I think that's what also propelled us this year. I think that, and I know I addressed it at one point once we got into conference play about how everybody was saying that to us. Well, hey, that's okay. Coming off of a tough loss, it's okay. You guys are learning for the future. I mean, your future is bright. And I just kind of, before one practice, we started talking about now and how important now is. And, let's go win some games now and see what happens. And, but yes, we have no juniors on this roster. So keeping these guys intact here the next couple of years and trying to bring in another really good recruiting class like we did this last year, I think could set us up to be where we want to be. And
Well, you've got Emory ahead of you, Marcus. That's where you want to be. You're going to be going to Middletown, Connecticut, and Wesleyan. I don't know if that's where you want to be or not. What's the travel plans first and foremost?
Yeah, we're going to head out Wednesday to get the bus ride out. We did that last week, and we'll get up there. We'll practice on Thursday, and and then just get ready for that game on Friday. So it's a short week back here on campus, but get everybody back in class, get everything organized academically, and we just did it this last week, and guys getting work done in the hotel before and after practices and shoot arounds, and so taking care of our classwork then, and we'll do the same thing this week. It worked well, so we're gonna not change anything.
Emory, what do you expect?
They're good. I mean, they are very, very good. And I think that kind of talking about, us in the future and returning these guys, we went down to Emory last year, and it's the same roster. So it's just one more year of experience for some really good players. People that have been asking me, I keep saying, I think they probably have the best athlete maybe in Division III right now, and in Jair Knight, that is just, he's tough, and he seems to score in a lot of different ways, and is super athletic, and they have size that shoots it well. They play fast, and they're good. So we know we have our work cut out for us. But everybody this time of year is good. I think at least for us to say to each other, hey, we belong here too now. So let's come up with the coaches will keep scouting and figuring out a game plan, and as we've been saying to them for the last 2 weekends, just fight like heck, and we'll see what happens.
Well, I congratulate you all. Our friend Clint texted me probably 2 weeks ago, goes, our last game's coming up. I know as a baseball fan, he was looking forward to baseball season. And while he's technically correct, his last game in basketball at home happened 2 weeks ago. He's not correct because he's got to stay busy with you guys. But that's the fun part, right?
That's the fun part. I don't blame him one bit. Listen, my wife and I had similar conversations when I would get to my honey-do list, and fortunately for me, I get to procrastinate a little bit longer on some of that stuff. And but yeah, it's it's been a long season, but I feel like we're picking up steam at the right time and playing with the most confidence we've played with all year.
Well, congrats! Fun story. I was looking at live stats and videos, and I'm just sitting there going, I cannot believe what I am watching. But that's what makes this tournament and this time of year so much fun, and we appreciate you finding time to talk about it with us. Safe travels. Good luck this coming weekend. I look forward to catching up with you down the road. I have a feeling we'll be talking about this Eagles squad quite a bit in the future. But in the meantime, we always give the guests the final word. Any final thoughts you want to share with those tuned in?
Well, just thank you for having me on. I love being able to come on here and pump up our program and talk about all the good that our guys are doing, and our squad and the path that we're on right now it's fun. And thank those that have been supporting us all throughout. It has been I know it wasn't easy for probably some of the parents even to make these road trips and travel to watch us play, but they were there in force this last weekend. They're already talking about heading back up to Connecticut. So just the appreciation for them and all the support network behind the program that goes into it. My wife, who again puts up with me during the season, she's got to put up with me and my crankiness for a couple more weeks before I settle back into home life. But just very, very grateful to be a part of this group, and having fun with them and the way we are is just excited to take on this upcoming weekend.
Well, good luck, Marcus.
I appreciate that.
Enjoy Wesleyan, and take care, and give Clint a little hard time when you walk past his office today, would you?
No problem. That's easy.
I appreciate that. Hey, take care. We'll talk soon.
Yes, thank you.
Marcus Kahn joining us on the Hoopsville Hotline in his 11th season there at Mary Washington, doing a really amazing job. Remember, he did really well at Cabrini, got them to the national title game in 2012. They were a shot away from winning a title. Unfortunately, they're closed, but Marcus is doing a pretty good job coaching along the way. We'll take a break. When we come back, we will talk to another Capital Athletic Conference member. Yeah, remember the old CAC? Catholic and Mary Washington used to be in there together. What a rivalry that was. Well, we'll talk to the Catholic Cardinals. Aaron Kelly joins us to talk about his Cardinals and the absolute dominating weekend they had. this weekend, and while they're still standing and Drew isn't. You're listening to Hoopsville, presented by D3 Hoops. Back with more after this.
We've got more schools than Division I, more fans than Division II, and more upsets than March Madness. There's nearly 850 programs with over 11,000 games leading to 2 national championships, and we've been covering it all for over 2 decades. From Eastern to Occidental, from Puget Sound to Piedmont, from Southwestern to the University of New England, and from Hope to Calvin. Nobody covers Division III basketball like we do. We're D3Hoops.com at www.d3hoops.com.
The National Association of Basketball Coaches is the nation's premier professional development and advocacy organization for basketball coaches at every level. The NABC strives to serve as the voice for coaches on national issues while advancing the core value of leadership, service, advocacy, education, and inclusion. To learn more about the NABC and to become a member, visit NABC.com and follow the NABC on social media at NABC 1927. That's NABC.com or NABC 1927 on social media.
It's on us to stop sexual assault.
In any way that we can.
To get a friend home safe.
To never blame the victim.
It's on us.
To stand up.
To make our community safe for all. It's on us.
It's on us to look out for each other at parties.
It's on us.
To be more than just a bystander.
To step up and say something.
It's on us, all of us.
To stop sexual assault.
Learn how and take the pledge at itsonus.org.
If I lose, I'll respond with respect.
If I win, I'll back it up with humility.
If I fail, I'll rise up with honor. It's tough for us to put it all on the line.
Don't undo my hard work with poor sportsmanship.
Respect. It's the name of the game.
Coach of the Year, Administrator of the Year, All-America Team, Wade Trophy. The WBCA doesn't just honor coaches, but players, administrators, and much more. The WBCA strives to honor those who have contributed to the advancement of women's basketball. Celebrate the present, honor the past, look to the future.
Division III men's and women's basketball players build skills and characteristics that set themselves up to win in life. How do they translate those skills when the ball stops bouncing? They join Dream Team, the network built by and for athletes who want to leverage their competitive advantage in careers and business. Find your post-basketball calling, your next team, and learn how to win big at DreamTeamWins.com. That's DreamTeamWins.com.
I used to never really talk, ever. I was afraid if I said something wrong, everyone would laugh at me. But then I started to play golf with Special Olympics. It helped me to find my voice. And now everyone else is speechless.
Welcome back to Hoopsville, everybody. Still to come, we're going to rant a little bit about how some things this weekend don't help Division III look or be better when the national eyes are all on us. Getting some pushback on one of them. We've got confirmation we are right, and that pushback is wrong, but it comes from somebody who likes to push back. You got questions for us? You can try and tweet us. Looks like Twitter might be coming up and running because I just finally sent out a tweet that left the computer the moment I hit send, and it's already getting reposted. So it looks like Twitter might be finally coming back, but it's been down twice today. So we'll see. But at D3 Hoopsville and hashtag Hoopsville is how you can interact with us. If you've got questions, please feel free to jump on board. We're live streaming on Facebook and on YouTube as well. we're going to talk about another Capital Athletic Conference foe. Man, I wish saying that. The old CAC was so much darn fun. Admittedly, my alma mater was part of ruining that because Catholic and Goucher left the conference, which started to pull a thread that, even though it looked strong, eventually unraveled and is now the C2C. But Mary Washington had a bonkers weekend. So did Catholic men's basketball. Holy cow. Talk about not getting the memo. Catholic gets into the first weekend of the NCAA tournament, having lost to Drew in the conference tournament and lost to Drew twice in a span of 5 games after dismantling my squad, I may add, along the way. They take on Franklin and Marshall at home and take the Centennial Conference champs to the woodshed. Beat them 84-50. We're still not sure where the Diplomats may be located in the Lancaster County. Randolph make it in the meantime, then goes, well, we're the better team. Nope, they lose too by 12, and that game was 18 or more at points along the way. What in the world happened in Lancaster County? Aaron Kelly joins us in Washington, D.C., with the cards of Catholic. Yeah, you didn't get the memo, did you?
I guess we did not. No,
What?
I'm glad.
I mean, I am too. Just spectacular, because I'll admit, most of the season, I was looking at you and Drew and thinking, okay, Catholic's the better team. I put you in and out of my top 25. Drew's been on my radar. February, that pivots. All of a sudden, I'm looking at Drew going, wow, they are playing some tremendously good basketball. High scoring, really like their play. I actually put them in my top 25 coming off the win over you guys, 77-70 in the middle of the month. And I'm like, all right, here we go. I'm trying to, I know it's the NCAA tournament. I know it's March. I know it's about matchups. But I'm trying to put together still today in my head how Drew can't get out of the first round against Mary Washington. No disrespect to the Eagles. We just talked to them. And you guys go and thump what I thought was a pretty good Franklin and Marshall team. You beat them 84-50, Aaron.
Yeah.
Was there a switch? Was it just the matchups? Like, it's weird to say, oh, Drew beat Catholic twice, but Drew lays an egg in the first round and Catholic goes and dismantles a good team. Like, it's just weird. What happened?
Yeah,
what worked for you guys?
I mean, with the tournament, I do think a lot of it is about your matchup,
Fair.
right? And seeds, people talk about seeding, but style, to me, matters more.
Agreed.
You could be in an 8-9 game, but you may be better off playing the 5 seed than the 8 seed just because of their style.
Very good point.
So I do think that, Drew, they beat us 3 times this year. And as the year went on, like the beatings got worse. And I just think that their style, their matchup, it wasn't really a good one for us. And then when we got into the tournament, I thought we matched up pretty well against F&M. And then the other thing that happened that, sometimes guys just make shots, and you can generate the same shot, and sometimes it goes in and sometimes it doesn't. And that could be the difference in a momentum shift in that game. And against F&M, our point guard, Dan Buckley, was 5 for 5 from 3 in the first half.
Yes, it was.
I went back and I watched his shots that he made, and it wasn't anything I did to help him, right? It was a good basketball player who was in a good way, and he made a bunch of shots. And that shifted momentum in our favor, and then we were just able to ride it, So I don't know, if we played F&M again, I would bet you $1 million we don't beat them the way that we were able to do in the first round. But on that given night, we did, So sometimes weird stuff happens.
Well, and I think Nick Niche was even kind of maybe frustrated himself at not maybe calling timeout sooner, from what I'm gathering, because he saw it starting to unravel and he wanted to try and stem it, but he probably was trying to toy between that and not blowing his timeouts. Yeah. When I've seen Franklin and Marshall a few times, and what jumped out at me just in their starting lineup, Josh Parra plays 22 minutes. It's about right, but that's more than I saw him play against Gettysburg when they handled Gettysburg. Grouseless plays just 26 minutes. He did have 4 fouls. Parra fouled out. if you can get Parr in foul trouble, I think you've got an advantage. That's certainly worked to your favor. It sounds like, no disrespect, Nick, but it sounds like Parr wasn't getting the whistles he wanted. I'll put it that way. Cormac played 21 minutes. Nowatzki, I almost said it, 31 minutes. Seidman played 37. And I think if you're Franklin and Marshall and you're leaning on Seidman to play 37 minutes, Aaron, to your perspective, you've got the advantage. I like Seidman, but I don't think you want him out there for 37 minutes. And if they're forced to do that, that plays into your hands.
Yeah, I didn't really look into their rotations too much because they don't really change the way that they play stylistically, right? Regardless of who's on the floor, they're going to do what they do. I think it's what makes them good. Like they hard hedge ball screens, kind of the same way with regardless of who's out there. They're going to run their offense the same way. So I wasn't paying as much attention to like who was on the floor as much as I was like, what are they doing? Are they switching up their ball screen coverage or are they staying with it? I don't know why Nick made the rotations that he did. But again, I just felt like the style, it's a style that we've been comfortable playing against, and our guys, I think, are comfortable playing against it. So we knew it was going to be a hard game. We knew how physical they are and how well they've guarded defensively. But from a style perspective, I just felt like, okay, this prep is not new for us. So at least going in that definitely made me feel a little bit more comfortable.
You absolutely handle the host. So you got a neutral site game against Randolph-Macon. Randolph-Macon's been one of the top 10 teams in the nation for the last few years. Obviously the champs from a couple of years ago, playing really well.
Yeah.
What did you see in that matchup you thought you could take advantage or did take advantage of?
They're really good and they're a really well-coached team. They pass the ball like really well and they shoot the ball really well. And I think at first glance, when you look at a team who is really physical and really athletic like Randolph-Macon is, usually those two things don't coexist. Usually a team is not physical, athletic, tough, and really good at passing and really good at shooting, right? They were all of those things, which scared me going into the game. So we definitely wanted to try to limit their ability to play out a drive and kick and to tee up threes because they shoot and make threes at a high clip. They can also offensive rebound threes. So we wanted to make them play a little bit more one-on-one. And then again, I think, I hate to like kind of dumb this down, but they didn't, they got some open looks in the first half that didn't go in. I think they were like 0 for 6 or 7 from 3 at the beginning of the game. And if 2 or 3 of those go in, it's a different game going into halftime. So they came out in the second half. They put some pressure on us. They made a couple of threes and they were getting to the rim, and I could feel a little bit of a momentum shift. And I thought for sure, like, hey, this is going to come down and be a 50-50 game. But then every time it got a little bit closer, one of our guys would make a timely basket, and we were able to just hold them off just enough where it never got within 10 in the second half. And I think if it had, you probably would have seen a one-possession game down the stretch.
Aaron, I kid you not, that's what I was watching for. I was producing my game, but I had your live stats sitting up on my laptop, and I kept glancing over. And the one thing I kept thinking to myself was, geez, if Randolph-Macon makes this a 10, 9-point game, this is going to flip. And every time I looked, it's 12. Oh, here it comes. Look back. Oh, it's 15. Oh, okay. Look back. It's 12. It never got to that. And I remember kept thinking to myself, geez, they've got to break through that or Aaron's squad's going to hold them off. You won the first half 39-22. You lost the second half, but it was 45-40. You really, to your point, you got to a point where you could just hold them and force them to do things they didn't want to do. That's tough to do against a Josh Merkel squad.
Yeah. Listen, again, if we played them again, would we beat them? I don't know. They're good,
Right. Or if it's really at their place.
Yeah, exactly. And then that's the thing also with Division Three is like they obviously deserved and earned the right to host, and there they are playing a neutral site game against us at F&M, and that's just the nature of Division Three. So it certainly wasn't completely fair to them to be playing that game there. But I walked away from that weekend being super impressed with Josh and the type of kid that they have, the fan base that they have. How tough, how disciplined they are, but also just like their kids are good kids and they carry themselves the right way. And like, it was fun, like playing in the game and coaching in that game and, the intensity in the gym. It was fun. It just was really good stuff.
I remember just looking, going, this is just, but that's what March is, right? The moniker's March Madness because of Division I, but it's really in our world so true, and we get to see this fun. Now you're moving on to the second weekend. Are you playing the basketball you all thought you would be playing? I mean, that's, I think, the bigger question. Is this what you expected your team to be able to do anyway?
I didn't know. I thought we had the pieces to do it through the year, and I thought that we had some flashes where I was like, all right, we're starting to play really well, and then we wouldn't, So I didn't going into the weekend. If you told me, hey, you're going to go 0-1 and go home, I wouldn't have been shocked. I mean, I think all those teams are good. I'm a little surprised that we won the weekend, I would say, and I think we're playing our best basketball. I think we started playing our best basketball when the ball tipped up Friday night. And after the game on Friday, I thought if our team plays like this on Saturday, we could win. And we did. And it wasn't one guy. It was all of them. They had a different approach, a different mentality. I think everybody is playing well. And I think our team is settled into an identity. And I'm looking forward to this weekend and hoping that momentum continues.
Well, it could. Let's see. You've got Roanoke, another ODAC team, Clay Nunley's squad. Ironic, another CAC thread there. Wow. Yeah. You've got them, and you're up at Trinity. First and foremost, what are your travel plans? We know Roanoke's likely flying out of their airport. What are you guys planning to do? What's your
we'll bus up. We'll practice Wednesday at home. We're on spring break, so we'll practice in the middle of the day. We'll get a hotel somewhere most of the way. And then we'll practice there on Thursday.
Unfortunately, got to go up the I-95 corridor. Please tell your bus driver to avoid GW Bridge at all costs. Please go over the new Tappan Zee if he could. What do you expect in Roanoke? This is if it's anything, it's a defensive-minded team. I know that, but what are you expecting from the Maroons and what you might see in Game 1 on Friday?
Yeah, well, I mean, the first thing I'll say is watching Randolph-Macon play. I was watching ODAC basketball. Yeah, and I don't get to watch a ton of it. And I was watching their conference semifinal game, and how physical the basketball is in the ODAC is like it's crazy, man. Yeah, the kids play so hard. And when I flipped on Roanoke this morning, it's what I expected to see, and it's what I saw. Is like they're 1 through 5, they're strong, they're physical, they're a really connected team on both ends of the floor. I've always known they were a good defensive team. And then what I was surprised and I guess disappointed to see is how good they are on offense. They score 82 a game, and they're efficient with the way that they do it. So I when I see them, I just see a team. I'm like, well, they don't have many weaknesses. 1 through 5, they're good. They're good on defense. They're good on offense. They're efficient. They rebound the ball well. They don't really turn it over. And I'm like, you're looking for the cracks in the team, and what are the tricks to beat them? And there really aren't any. You got to go play well.
Well, yeah, you got to go play well. At this point in the season, anything's possible, as you've proven. Talk to me a little bit about this team. Sean Nalen leads the team 16.7 points a game, 4 rebounds a contest. Shoots pretty well from outside. Yeah, 47% on 192 shots. He's also almost Don't put him on the free throw line is what I'm trying to say. He's going to hit almost every time, 96% from there, 48% from the floor. Brian Herbert shoots 50% from the floor, 86% from the line at 14 points a game, 6 boards per contest. Dan Buckley, who you already talked about, also shoots well from the floor, hands out pretty good, hands out almost every assist, plus rebounds, and there's more and more guys. But just statistically, and this is what kind of really attracted me about your guys, is this is a very sound team that is not only going to play well on offense, plays well on defense, but also going to hit free throws. And they do all the right things that, to me, some of the losses kind of surprised me, which is why I thought so highly of Drew. Tell me about these guys as individuals a little more than you already have.
Yeah, well, I think they do a good job of not beating themselves. They're really sound. They're different from last year's team. Last year we had a lot of older guys who I felt like were like kind of real like alphas. Like they were loud, they were vocal, they were kind of up in your face. This team is not quite like that. I think this team they're a little bit, I hate to use the word like thoughtful, but they're cerebral. They pick up on stuff really fast. If we want to introduce a concept, I can talk about it, and then they can go out on the floor and they can execute it. So they process information really well, and they've made us, because they can do it, we're a little bit more versatile than we were a year ago. And there are times now where we're putting 2 bigs on the floor and shifting Brian Herbert down, and he can start as a 2 guard, and he's 6'5", 200 pounds.
Right.
So we have good size kind of across the board, which has made us better defensively. So we can go bigger, and then at the same time, if we wanted to put 5 guards on the floor, we can also do that, and we can go smaller and spread some teams out. So I've found myself seeing, when we have a matchup, I said, oh, if this team does this, then we can do this. If they do this, then we can do that. So that's made me feel good about this team. And yeah, it's a great group of guys. They're pretty selfless. No one complains about playing time. We've had a lot of different guys lead us in scoring on a lot of different nights. I think like Sean Nealon's a good example. He oftentimes will get face guarded. And I said to him earlier in the week, man, it's like, hey, if a team's face guarding you, you have to do other things to help us win. And he's like, all right, I got you. And we went out and we played F&M. He only took 3 shots. And he had 2 assists and no turnovers, and he did a good job defensively. And, we scored 80 points. So it's things like that make coaching this team like really fun.
And it's your alma mater, right? Like that's fun too.
Yeah. Yes.
Aaron, I could talk to you forever about this, but I got to get going. But I appreciate the time. I want to talk more in the future for sure. This is fun to see, and I'm looking forward to this matchup against Roanoke because, yeah, I mean, you talk about playing Randolph Macon a second time. Not you're playing Randolph Macon a second time, but it's gonna feel that way, right?
It's gonna feel similar. I think that they're about pretty evenly matched in style wise. I think it's gonna feel the same.
Awesome. Well, congrats. Really impressive.
Thank you, man.
Good luck on not only the travel, but the game and maybe even the game after that. As always, we give the guests the final word. Any final thoughts you want to share with those tuned in?
Yeah, I want to say thanks, man. Like the stuff that you guys do, the stuff that the D3 Hoops guys are doing, the Datacast, and Quillman was, he sent me a message last night. Why aren't you guys hosting? And it has definitely connected. Like I talked to other coaches about this, and it's connected the D3 community. And because of the work that you guys do, I am way more well-versed with what's happening in the Midwest, right? I now know the Texas teams who are good and who is good out in California, where I think before this stuff all started happening, I very, very much bubbled. I didn't know much outside of the East Coast. So it's fun for me now to be able to follow scores and follow Twitter accounts. And it's like, oh, wow, this team out in the Midwest beat this team in the Midwest. And you're more familiar with who they are. So, it feels bigger, it feels more national. It feels like it's a little bit more in the big time. And that's a credit to all you guys for doing the work that you do. And none of us are getting rich doing it. And it's a passion project. So I appreciate it, man. It's a ton of fun.
When you were playing, you all thought you were the best. Come on. Just because you won the title in 01 doesn't mean anything.
We're looking for another one.
I know. And looking good right now. Hey, Aaron, thanks again for the time. Take care of yourself. Look forward to catching up, and we'll talk soon.
Okay. Thanks, Dave.
Aaron Kelly joining us on the Hoopsville hotline. Fun to catch up with him. Seriously, a lot of old CAC ties here on the show. Completely unintended. Trust me, when I booked guests, it was way too late to have those kinds of thought processes. We'll take another break. By the way, quick on the hosting thing, I'll go back to what I said at the top of the show. I'm glad that the committee was given the chance to give it to the one who deserved to host versus just going to the geographic center. Catholic would have hosted if we'd been 4 years ago in the old school of hosting and saving money and all that. I'm kind of glad it's going to Trinity. And that's not a knock at Catholic. That's just a tip of the hat to the committee. When we come back, we go down to Texas. Hardin Simmons Cowboys join us to talk about their chances in the next round and how they're playing some really good basketball. We saw them in Vegas, knew this was possible. They're proving it now. You're listening to Hoopsville, presented by DIII Hoops.
For the love of the game. But for those of us who are Division III student athletes, it's more than that. A lot more.
Sure, the game is important, but as we work so hard to build both mind and body, it's more about team.
That is why NCAA Division III teamed up with Special Olympics, and in giving the gift of sport to those for whom it seemed an impossible dream, we are working to make this a better world.
Help us keep that dream alive.
You can make a difference.
We are the coaches of women's basketball. We are leaders and teachers, dreamers and winners. We are professionals who conduct ourselves ethically and with integrity. We place the education, safety, and well-being of the athletes we coach above all else and teach them the fundamental values they need to succeed in life. We are coaches united for the good of our game and those who play it. We are the WBCA.
We've got more schools than Division I, more fans than Division II, and more upsets than March Madness. There's nearly 850 programs with over 11,000 games leading to 2 national championships. And we've been covering it all for over 2 decades. From Eastern to Occidental, from Puget Sound to Piedmont, from Southwestern to the University of New England, and from Hope to Calvin. Nobody covers Division III basketball like we do. We're D3Hoops.com at www.d3hoops.com.
The National Association of Basketball Coaches is the nation's premier professional development and advocacy organization for basketball coaches at every level. The NABC strives to serve as the voice for coaches on national issues while advancing the core value of leadership, service, advocacy, education, and inclusion. To learn more about the NABC and to become a member, visit NABC.com and follow the NABC on social media at NABC 1927. That's NABC.com or NABC 1927 on social media.
Responsibility is being accountable for your words and actions, first and foremost. It also is an obligation to be a positive influence in the communities around you. Being in a D3 program, you're going to have lots of different opportunities. You're not just an athlete, you're also involved in student life. Your academics are extremely important. We give a lot of our student athletes responsibilities right from the start by giving them leadership opportunities, by having them engage in the community, be a positive influence. That's being a responsible person.
There are over 480,000 college athletes. Only 2% would go pro. That means over 470,000 will not get a shoe contract. No autographs. No private jets. No fan clubs. No Hall of Fame inductions. Instead, they will walk away with something much more valuable.
I did receive a non-athletic scholarship upon entering school.
I got the presidential scholarship, which was huge for me.
I think there's more opportunities for academic scholarships in Division III.
I did receive academic scholarships. Just being involved on campus, being a leader, all those things combined kind of get me recognized. It's a great experience for me.
For the love of the game. But for those of us who are Division III student athletes, it's more than that. A lot more.
Sure, the game is important, but as we work so hard to build both mind and body, it's more about team.
That is why NCAA Division III teamed up with Special Olympics, and in giving the gift of sport to those for whom it seemed an impossible dream, we are working to make this a better world.
Help us keep that dream alive.
You can make a difference.
We are the coaches of women's basketball. We are leaders and teachers.
That same commercial break. I got to go fix some of the settings on that thing. Welcome back to Hoopsville, everybody. If you got any questions for us, tweet us at D3Hoopsville or hashtag Hoopsville. Looks like Twitter's up and running. Already got some pushback on something we've been reporting for the last day or so. We'll talk about that coming up in the last segment of the show. But let's head down to Texas. We're going to talk to some Cowboys. Okay, that's the mascot. We're not talking to actual Cowboys that I'm aware of. Hardin Simmons playing very good basketball. We saw them at the D3 Hoops Classic in Las Vegas, and we all walked away going, wow, this is, don't look at their record at 20-9, having lost 5 straight, including a game in Vegas where they played 3, remember. They and Redlands played 3. They won 2 of those 3 and got things rolling. They were dealing with injuries, and they have been playing really well since. In fact, they've lost once since Vegas, once since that Redlands loss. And that was to a technically non-Division III school now in Texas, Dallas. And in overtime, they beat Mary Hardin Baylor in the conference title game, ending Cliff Carroll's career. We'll talk to Matt about that. And then beating Cal Lutheran and St. Thomas in the NCAA tournament. They've got number 1 NYU in New York City. They'll be boarding a plane here shortly. This is going to be interesting, folks. We got a few guests to get to on this one. We're going to start with the head coach and Matt Brackett here on Hoopsville. First and foremost, we should mention, Coach, you're not feeling well. So we're going to have just a quick couple of minutes with you, and we'll get to the rest of it. First and foremost, thank you, despite not feeling well, appearing on the show. And second of all, congratulations. This is the team you were telling us about in Vegas, right?
Right, yeah. No, I appreciate you having us on. It's been an up and down season for sure, and we're just excited to be a part of this journey.
Well, the down was in the first half. You lost 3 of your opening 5. You lost 5 in a row when we saw you. You'd only had 4 wins after that Redlands game, and along with 8 losses. Admittedly, I think even you guys were probably going, wow, we knew we had some talent. We knew we could do something, but injuries are killing us. We're not figuring this out. You beat SUNY New Paltz. You beat Wittenberg. You start rolling from there. You get into conference play. And really things finally clicked once you got everybody back.
Yeah, this is what we expected our season to be honest. Having Will and Austin come back for their 5th year. We had a great freshman class that was returning as sophomores. And we were excited from the very beginning, and then injuries hit. It wasn't just Will and Cooper Peterson, but Tyler Williams too. And then here last week, 2 weeks ago, Matthew Alexander, our starting freshman guard, went down with an MCL, ACL injury. But, all programs are dealing with those things. But the bulk of our injuries happen to come early. And so we just, had to weather that storm. We knew when we got back to full strength, we were going to be ready to go. And it also gave us an opportunity to play a bunch of guys early, in the season and get some valuable experience for them. So now, they're contributing big time for us, especially when we have to go into our bench really deep, like we did against St. Thomas. So that was a big difference in that game.
I saw the exact same thing at Gettysburg's women. They lost their best player in Slozig, or one of their best players. I can't just label her the only one. Slozig at the beginning of the season in the 3rd game. And in my opinion, you're right. It went deeper into the bench. There's a freshman in Ava O'Neill who's able to figure out how to play. Hits her biggest career basket, obviously as a freshman, in the game in the 2nd round to help them win when they're playing with another best player out due to injury. To your point, Matt, you go through those trials and tribulations early. You get all this experience from underclassmen, you figure it out, and when you take another blow, the guys are like, yeah, okay, we're ready.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. I mean, Asher Fleming has really stepped up for us here in the last few weeks, conference tournament. He was arguably our best player on the floor, and then also first game in the first round of the NCAA tournament. Against Cal Lutheran, he was amazing. So, all that experience, he played a lot earlier in the season, and then his minutes changed. And again, I think that's, it's a testament to who we are, and that nobody's really hung their heads when minutes changed, and incorporating these guys in after injury was tough. But our guys they're just such great teammates. So it's been a joy to coach.
We're going to let you go because I know you want to rest the voice and rest yourself up and not get anybody ill. But quickly, going to New York City to play the #1 team in the Violets in this next round. Curious your travel plans and your expectations for that game.
Yep, flying out 11:50 from DFW, so we'll leave Abilene and Hart Simmons early in the morning and fly out to New York. And I got a scouting report from my son this morning on NYU because I haven't even been able to watch film yet. That's what I'm about to go do. So he told me all about him. So I'll take his word for it. And yeah, and then we'll we expect to win. Our guys have been playing really well, and it's been a while since we lost, and this was the team that we expected to have. So that's our expectations.
Hey, it's only a 2.5-hour drive just to get to DFW. If anybody's curious, it's not like they're just showing up at DFW to get going for that flight. I'm looking forward to chatting with your guys about the team here shortly. Coach, I'll let you go quickly. Any final thoughts you want to share with those who may be tuned in?
Yeah, I just appreciate all you do, Dave, and for D3 basketball. So.
Thanks, man. Hey, rest up, and
Yes,
hope you get well soon, and we'll talk to you soon. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Matt will step aside. We'll get a couple of the guys in here to talk about this team. I feel bad for Matt. He's got the same thing my son had this past week, and I have had it. It is not my favorite illness by any stretch. I'll take a flu over what he's dealing with. But he's staying away from his guys, and his guys now step in. Gentlemen, good to see you. We got the chance to see you in Vegas. To say the least, gentlemen, just to make it easier for everybody at home so that I don't screw up names personally, let's introduce them to everybody. Go ahead.
I'm Austin Brewer.
There we go.
And then I'm Will Bartozik.
First off, I remember when every time I see Will's name, Bartozik, I look down, I'm like, oh, I know who that is. And I look up and go, I don't know who that is. Will, I love it. As I said to Coach, we saw you in Vegas. You guys were coming in, maybe reeling a little bit. 4-game losing streak. Redlands beat you, but that game was, that was a good game. It was 97-89. That was nip and tuck for most of it. I can understand, as a former athlete myself who's gone through a really rough season or two, you could throw the towel. But I have a feeling you guys, especially coming back, are like, no, this is not how our careers end. We'll start for you, go left to right. Give me a sense of just what you all were going through in those moments.
I think it was definitely tough. My past 4 years, we've won a lot of games, and I think starting off 4-8 was a little tough, and we had to come together and try and figure out what was going on. And I think just getting a couple wins helped us gain some confidence and continue to grow into where we are now. So I think kind of glad it happened, because if we didn't go through it, I don't know if we'd be here, but I'm glad we got the tough losses out of the way in the beginning. That's
a fair argument, to say the least. Sometimes you got to go through the tough parts to get ready for the later challenges. Austin, watching your team, don't take this the wrong way, 15.3 points a game, you lead the scoring, but there's times that it's everybody else that seems to get the attention, and you just bide and find your moments. Is that fair?
Well, I just think, like I said, I'm averaging 15 whatever points per game, and then we got Chris too, who averages 15.
Right.
And Will's got 11 or 12, whatever it is, and Asher's been playing great. He's probably been averaging 15 over the last 4 games we've been playing. So I just think it just speaks to how deep we are, and again, how unselfish our team is. We just got a bunch of guys who just love being around each other and just sharing the rock. So it's been pretty cool to be a part of.
Asher scored 24 against Cal Lou.
He's been hooping.
That for a guy who averages 7 points a game. Now he averages 7 points a game. Guys, tell me a little bit about just what happened post Vegas, because you've lost only one game. You've won 14 of the last 15 games since you saw Redlands, who's obviously still dancing in the tournament themselves. And I think you see them actually on the other side of things in your pod. Austin, starting with you, what's been the January till now experience been like with all of you? You've been playing a lot of the same teams, but you've also been playing well. You're gaining confidence, I'm assuming.
Yeah, so this is, again, kind of like Coach mentioned earlier, this is kind of the January through now season's kind of what we've been expecting. We weren't surprised by it. We have confidence in our guys and just their ability to just go out there and play as a team. And so it's been fun. It's going undefeated conference isn't, it's something that happens a whole lot, even though we have a smaller conference. But that was a pretty cool experience. And then, again, this is what kind of me and Will came back for. We kind of got all of our accolades out of the way and stuff. Not that stuff really matters or anything, but we got that out of the way. We kind of came in just kind of saying like, hey, like this year, let's just go win. That's just kind of our mindset behind it. Just whatever that takes. Getting 20 rebounds a game, not scoring at all, or playing 0 minutes or whatever it was. That's kind of was our mindset. Just kind of doing whatever the team needed. So
I didn't want to. I didn't bring it up with Matt, but you guys play you play Hamptons. I'll try that again. Mary Hardin Baylor. Lord, too many H words. Mary Hardin Baylor in the conference championship game. And, there's probably a good portion of the country that was rooting against you guys because we didn't want to see Cliff Carroll's career at that place come to an end. But you guys, you had a bit of a game with them. 73-62, Will. That wasn't necessarily a slam dunk. You probably knew you had to win to get in, right?
Yeah, for sure. We knew coming in that we definitely had to win to get a chance to play in the NCAA tournament. And playing UMSB is always fun. It's a great rivalry, and I think we were just determined to come out with the win because we had no other choice but to win.
What was that atmosphere like? Because Austin, you guys were not at home.
No, we had our fans traveled pretty well though, and so it's pretty cool to see. They were chanting HSU the whole time when we went up or went on a run. So it was pretty cool actually to see a bunch of people come out and support us. That kind of speaks to kind of the people we have here in Abilene and just kind of all over Texas. So that came out to support us. So it was actually a pretty cool atmosphere.
Austin, a bit of Road Warriors here because again, you were in Marshall to play the conference tournament. You're in Houston to play the first 2 rounds. Now you're heading to New York City. The only difference is you're out of Texas, but it may not feel different because it's not like those places are close. You guys are kind of, and heck, we saw you in Vegas. You guys are racking up the frequent flyer and the bus miles real quick.
Oh yeah, I mean, we went to Washington too and to Colorado. So.
Oh right, yeah.
Yeah, so we the road's kind of our friend right now, I guess. So I think we kind of played better on the road than at home, to be honest with you. So I think it's a good thing, that we're on the road, and we've kind of this is kind of the season we've been preparing for, whole year. So.
Well, to that point, by the way, 5-4 at home, 10-3 on the road, 5-2 in neutral sites. So when away, you're 15-5 versus 5-4 at home. You may have a point there. We won't play at home anymore. Will, he kind of touched on it. We'll go back to the same kind of question over again. You had high expectations coming in, and it didn't start that way. Have you allowed yourself at any point in the second half to go, oh, okay, we're where we wanted to be. Now let's go play how we want? Or has it been a grind and always been a we're not good enough mentality because you had that first half experience?
I think it's been a mixture of both. I think knowing what we could do, we had to just continue to grind, continue to work to get to where we wanted to be. And I think once we hit maybe a couple wins in a row, we're like, okay, maybe we found something, maybe we found a stride where we've hit and where we'll win some games. And I think just throughout practice, everything we go through, I mean, it was just a grind, and I think once we hit our stride, we took off.
Hey, Will, there's no way you guys haven't looked ahead. I can't imagine you're waiting for the scouting report that your coach is just starting to look at. You've got to have looked ahead at who NYU is. They're kind of this split number one in the polls before the tournament. What do you see in the Violets? What have you looked at that you're like interested in or think you all can take advantage of without giving us a scouting report? I don't want you to go there, but I know you've been looking.
I mean, I know they're a good team. Other than that, they're ranked number 1 in the nation, and I know they're pretty good. So we gotta come with it.
Austin, have you peaked?
A little bit. I know they match up pretty well with our size. I've kind of seen that kind of through the roster. I know they're pretty big, kind of like we are, and so I think it's going to be a good game. And if we're just us, then we're gonna do all right. I think so.
Quickly, a little bit about you guys before we let you go. Austin, you're a math major. Tip of the hat to you, sir. My kids hate it. I love it. Actually, that's not true. I think my son enjoys it a little bit. My daughter's catching on. Your parents both played at Hardin-Simmons. In fact, your mom's in the Athletics Hall of Fame. We were joking on the broadcast in Vegas. That's a bit of a lofty bar to come into Hardin-Simmons knowing your mom's got her name in the Hall of Fame. What's that experience been like?
Oh yeah, that's cool. I kind of grew up. Me and Coach Brackett joke about this all the time. I had a high school. I went to Sam Houston State, and I kind of was like, "Oh, I'm never going to go to Hardin-Simmons because my parents went there," and that kind of deal. Where I'm not going to follow my mom's footsteps or my dad's footsteps, but he's just said I ignored him. I don't think that's true. But, big time. But no, it's super cool. I'm like the 3rd best basketball player. I've got my cousin Brittany. She played for the Atlanta Dream, and she played at Tech and was awesome there. And then my mom, she's been great here. So it's just kind of cool that to kind of carry on the legacy a little bit almost. But man, I've got a great family, and it's just kind of cool to say that I know them. So
yeah,
related to them.
Hey, Will, you've got an interesting background. Well, certainly not tied to HSU necessarily. By the way, you should point out you're a sport management major. Pretty cool. But your mom, Tandra, she ran track at Texas Christian. That's nothing to sneeze at. That's pretty darn impressive.
Yeah, my uncle played football at Wyoming too, so I kind of underwhelmed playing Division III. But I mean, whatever works.
I assume you're showing them that you made the right choice.
Oh yeah, for sure. I wouldn't want it any other way.
But what's it like to come through? Both of you guys coming through athletic families. And with who did well, right? Who have those lofty, not goals. I don't want to say it that way, but they did really well. Do you feel, Will, a pressure that you have to somehow live up to that as well? Or were you able to just live your own path and ending up at Division III, as you joked, was perfectly good for you and worked out one?
Yeah, there's no pressure at all. My parents, pushed to just do whatever I wanted to do and whatever was best for me. And I think I've just done that. And thanks to them, because if I was put to pressure to whatever they wanted to do, I probably wouldn't be in this position. So just lead me in that way.
Yeah, makes total sense. And I applaud that, because how many times we heard parents who were overbearing in those things. Austin, I know you had a wonderful story about coming to Hardin-Simmons. I have a feeling you got hogtied, thrown in the trunk, and told you were coming to HSU. You had no choice, and you just showed up on a basketball court all tied up. I kid, but what you touched on a little bit there. It sounds like you do what you want. You don't have to live up to what we did.
Oh yeah, no, my parents, they didn't care if I was a basketball player or if I, wanted to, go do something else. But they no pressure at all from them. Their thing was that it's my dream and it's whatever I want to make out of it, and they're just going to support me in that. And so that really spurred me on to where, I think, college athletics is hard, and if it's not your passion, you're not going to last for 4 or 5 years. And we see that a lot. But they made sure that it was my passion to go play, and so I really appreciate them for that.
We should point out, by the way, your dad taught in the I think you may have mentioned physical therapy department there. Not your dad, your uncle. Uncle. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Dad, uncle, same thing, right?
They look just about the same. So.
By the way, you're a rare listed center. I love that about you, by the way. I miss the old listed actual centers. Too many guards listed at 6'8". Gentlemen, I appreciate your time. Quick question before I let you go, though. Basketball is going to come to an end. You both came back for your 5th years. Basketball is going to end, at least at the collegiate level. Maybe you have other plans, Austin. What are you hoping to do? Math major, basketball hopes, whatever, when you get your degree?
So actually, I think the Lord kind of used this year to kind of help me figure out what I want to do. So I'm actually not using my math degree at all. I'm going to try to go be a police officer somewhere up in the Metroplex area. So a little different than a math.
Well, math will still come in handy.
But yeah, but that's kind of where I felt like he pulled me to go. So
wow, 6'10", I think, police officer.
Yes, sir.
Good luck. I mean, you're going to have to duck a little bit more.
I think so. Yes, sir.
I'm kidding. I hope you're never in a situation you ever have to find yourself like that. Will, in the meantime, what are you hoping to do when you get the degree?
Maybe potentially play overseas if there's an opportunity, but if not, I'll probably be here and stay here and graduate assistant for 2 more years.
Oh, cool.
Hardin Simmons. So
can't get Bartosik out of Hardin Simmons unless he's got a European deal. I get it. Hey, gentlemen, really appreciate your time. Thank you for the insight on your program. Chad gave me so many notes. I could not come close to touching on them. But it's great to just get to chat with you guys, having seen you in Vegas and seeing you now. Really great juxtaposition. Good luck this weekend, starting with NYU. Safe travels. We have a tradition on the show. We always give the guests the final word, though. Will, we'll go with you, and then Austin. Any final thoughts you guys want to share with those tuned in?
Thank you for having us. I mean, it's always cool to do this, so thank you.
Yep, just thank y'all. Thank you for having us, and appreciate it.
Thank you. Appreciate finding some time to join us as well. Shout out to everybody there at the department who helped along the way. You guys take care, and we'll look forward to catching up with you.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
See ya.
The Hardin Simmons men's basketball team joining us here. Thanks to Matt, Will, and Austin for their time. We really appreciate it. When we come back, we'll talk about some things that happened this weekend that continue to give us maybe a little bit of a black eye in Division III. When we have the eyes of the world watching us, we got to stop shooting ourselves in the foot. You're watching Hoopsville, presented by D3 Hoops. More after this. Division III men's and women's basketball players build skills and characteristics that set themselves up to win in life. How do they translate those skills when the ball stops bouncing? They join Dream Team, the network built by and for athletes who want to leverage their competitive advantage in careers and business. Find your post-basketball calling, your next team, and learn how to win big at DreamTeamWins.com. That's DreamTeamWins.com.
We've got more schools than Division I, more fans than Division II, and more upsets than March Madness. There's nearly 850 programs with over 11,000 games leading to 2 national championships. And we've been covering it all for over 2 decades. From Eastern to Occidental, from Puget Sound to Piedmont, from Southwestern to the University of New England, and from Hope to Calvin. Nobody covers Division III basketball like we do. We're D3Hoops.com at www.d3hoops.com.
I believe sportsmanship is a mutual admiration and respect for your fellow competitors. We all go through a lot to reach the point where we compete against one another. It's important to realize that. So once we're finally on the field or on the court or on the starting block, we look at each other as fellow human beings and not just competitors. Being able to recognize the hard work that other athletes are putting in creates a more positive and inclusive environment.
We are calling you, all of you. We are calling all Division III schools to join our cause.
It's on us to start the change. It's on us to be the change. It's on us. It's on Division III. It's on all of us to stop sexual assault.
Comprehensive learning is being able to adapt to experiences and apply the things that I learned. Being an athlete and juggling academics helped me grow as a person, and things that I've learned, I was able to apply it in another field, putting them into everyday life. Developing comprehensive learning helped me prioritize certain things to make sure I get to where I want to be.
Coach of the Year, Administrator of the Year, All-America Team, Wade Trophy. The WBCA doesn't just honor coaches, but players, administrators, and much more. The WBCA strives to honor those who have contributed to the advancement of women's basketball. Celebrate the present, honor the past, look to the future.
For the love of the game. But for those of us who are Division III student athletes, it's more than that, a lot more.
Sure, the game is important, but as we work so hard to build both mind and body, it's more about team.
That is why NCAA Division III teamed up with Special Olympics, and in giving the gift of sport to those for whom it seemed an impossible dream, we are working to make this a better world.
Help us keep that dream alive.
You can make a difference.
Welcome back to Hoopsville, everybody, from the Hoopsville studios on this Monday afternoon. Thursday's show scheduled for 7 p.m. We had to move today's show up because of meetings that got booked for my other job in the offseason, though it's really a trick question, which one's offseason. Is this my offseason from that work, or is that my offseason from my Division III and college work? The crossover seasons, I can tell you this much, and most SIDs would understand and can relate, and actually they're worse. The crossover seasons are brutal, and I have a meeting tonight. That's why we moved this one up. I don't have anything scheduled for Thursday, though I am literally going to check this calendar as we speak, because I've made that comment before, like for today, and then realized later I was mistaken. Yes, we have an evening scheduled for Hoopsville. So 7 o'clock. Then next Monday, we will also have a matinee edition, because I have yet another meeting scheduled, right? No. Oh, yes. Next week's a bit of a challenge. We'll figure out Monday. I've got a lacrosse game. I've got work. I've got another lacrosse game on Tuesday. We'll figure it out. We'll be on the air sometime on Monday. We will figure it out. I'm just not sure the details right now, but we will figure out how we'll be on the air. So just stay with us on the social medias. Twitter does seem to be coming back to life a little bit today. We tweeted out all about the show, so jump on board. We would love to hear from you if you've got questions. I'm going to wrap things up with a little bit of a rant, mainly because we seem in Division III to always get to this part of the season, and we punch ourselves, we shoot ourselves in the foot, we give ourselves a black eye, whatever it is. And I know what I'm about to bring up, and not necessarily name names, but I'm going to bring up a few scenarios that don't seem that big a deal, but I'm going to point out how it feels like they're a bit of a big deal. Because for anybody who is focused there, who may not be a big fan of or don't know Division III or whatever the case may be, or media members, this is what they see. They don't see the entirety of the tournament. They don't see the entirety of the division. That's their experience, right? So one of those things that bugs the hell out of me as a producer and a director myself, and one who has produced and directed NCAA productions or been responsible for NCAA productions, is schools who don't give a darn about the neutrality of things when they host. And I know this, people are rolling their eyes going, well, come on, it's college students, or they don't know any better, or yeah, it's the home team, they should have a little bit of rah-rah. I get it to an extent. I do. But there's a couple of things going on here. First off, you get an NCAA hosting opportunity and are asked to produce the production. You are expected to treat everyone equal. Because remember, 3 of the 4 teams are not there, right? They're coming to town. They're not from there. Which means 3 of the 4 fan bases are likely watching the web streams, not the home crowd. The home crowd's there. You'll have some who watch, but the vast majority of your fans watching these games, or the fans watching the games, are not your fans. And so when you treat it as if it's your home game and you don't care about neutrality, treating the opponent fairly, or anything else, it gives the division and yourselves a bad name. I watched one in particular. I've heard about 2 or 3 others that just did a poor job on neutrality. Okay, the graphics were neutral. But outside of that, it went sideways. There's requirements as a host. You must run Division III ads during the ad breaks. This one in particular didn't run one, and in their games that didn't feature themselves, they didn't run any. They didn't run a darn thing, even at halftime. The broadcasters were heavy pro home team, and they weren't college students. They're broadcasters. They're adults. They understand this. And while they maybe have had moments here and there of talking about their opponent, they didn't in the grand scheme of things. And when it was coming down the moment, there was one sequence in one particular game in the final minute and a half of the game where the broadcasters were hooping and hollering about a big play for the home team. And then the away team hits a huge three. And they're like, oh, three-pointer. And I'm not exaggerating. The dichotomy between the two reactions was massive. There was a canyon between the two. And then there's a video review, and they're pissing on the video review for time. I was watching the game, looking at the game clock, not the broadcast clock, but the game clock. And every time the clock needed to stop, at least a half a second rolled off. Interesting enough, in the review, they didn't change the time. But that might have been the only time I noticed in the last minute the clock actually stopped when it should have. You have fan bases who are watching these games, and that's who they think of you, and thus they think of the division. There are people from outside of Division III watching these broadcasts. That's how they think of the division. So when we have broadcasters who don't take the neutrality at all respectfully, don't do as asked on the broadcasts that are now all bunched together on this championships pass thing on Huddle, which I thought worked out pretty well. Remember, the hosts are doing it for free as hosts if they're NCAA neutral games. You can run local ads through it, which is a weird rule that I think we got to get rid of. But you still need to have, like, only if you got to still run your D3 ads. And if you still are in an ad break, you can, I mean, the audio coming through on the radio is, anyway. The only ads that ran were about the school, not about Division III, not about their opponents. They didn't have any ads from their opponents. I think some of their opponents have those ads. And this wasn't, that's the one I watched. I heard about two other places that this was like this. We got to stop. Treat the games respectfully. And it may sound like I'm splitting hairs. This is how people see Division III. Another one that drove me nuts. At least two coaches that I'm aware skipped or tried to skip their press conferences after a loss. One of them should have known better and did skip their press conference. Pat Coleman reported it. Women did not show up at the press conference. Got one individual on Twitter who's telling us it's a false narrative and it's made up news. It's not. Pat was there. And Michelle has been on the national committee. She knows it's a requirement. Even if maybe didn't get a reminder or something. I don't know. It's been SOP for national tournament games that you show up to press conferences, win or loss, for as long as I've been involved in NCAA tournament postseasons. By not having that postseason recap or that press conference, if there's media on site, and at the place I was, there actually was a few, that's a disservice to them, and it makes you look bad, makes the division look bad. If your own media wants some information, they are expecting that press conference to be able to watch, whether it's recorded or live. Can't get that either. And then you look bad, and the division looks bad, because that's what we're talking about. And that wasn't the only one. I heard of at least one other, I think on the men's side, where either they did skip or tried to skip, and the rep on site had to remind them, no, you got to go to this. I don't know that particular. I didn't get that particular. But it was the talk of the town on Saturday. It got to me by word of mouth. Stuff like that doesn't get to me unless it happened. we're giving Division III a bad look when we do this crap. And then we're now in a conversation being stirred up by people who know better about hosting both genders at one site and that it should be allowed. This is like Transylvania last year bitching that they didn't get to host their pod. It's like Case Western complaining after the game that they didn't get to host their pod. This isn't the time to make those arguments. I'm going to give you a crazy example of this. During the season of 21, I believe it was, yes, Max Scherzer for the then Washington Nationals was on the executive board for the Players Union. He may still be for all I know. And he was not happy about the mask mandate that players had for being in the locker room. But more importantly, he wasn't happy about if someone was vaccinated and came down sick with COVID, he thought they should be allowed in the locker room. He decided to make this point when one of his fellow teammates who was vaccinated came down with COVID. And he complained to the media that that player should be allowed in the locker room and be with the team because he's vaccinated, even though he's got COVID. There's one problem with when he timed that other than his teammate was sick. Other teammates got sick because of it. So he was around them at one point, probably before he tested positive. He got sick, sickened others, and they had a bit of an issue not having 3 or 4 pitchers, I think it was. Max Scherzer in that moment is arguing, hey, we should allow guys who are double vaccinated to be here. Not good timing, Max, because you look like a fool. We look like fools when we are arguing in Division III whether some teams, schools should be able to host the same weekend when it's happening. That's an argument for January in the NCAA convention. That's an argument for the offseason when we're having meetings. That's not an argument for now. Transylvania, you going on the road with a president who's been on presidential councils and an AD at the time who's been on management and championship council and all other kind of things, that's not the time to make that argument. Case Western, after you lose a game, that's not the time to make that argument. You make it in the offseason, which ultimately did happen with hosting everybody. That's why Trinity men are probably hosting. Because the argument then did happen in the offseason and had been happening. You don't give us a black eye when we are celebrating the sport by bringing this crap up. Hosting both genders at the same school. I sympathize and understand schools can pull that off. A few off the top of my head. A lot of the WIAC schools, NYU can do it. Stevenson University, believe it or not, can pull it off. There's quite a few schools who could pull it off, but the vast majority cannot. In terms only of locker room space and gym space. That's it. That's all. That I'm just saying they can pull it off in terms of locker room space, maybe hotel rooms, gym, etc. Yes, NYU could host both genders because they have the room at their new facility to pull it off. But the vast majority of schools do not, and the rules in Division III say it won't happen. Why are we arguing it now? And I'm not for it, by the way. I'm not for changing this rule. And I'm not for changing this rule for 2 reasons. The first is the vast majority of schools can't do it. So now we are giving an unfair advantage to those schools who can afford to build monster facilities that they can host games and eliminate any chance for others to host because they don't have the financial wherewithal to be able to pull it off. Let's talk about a school who's got both teams in but doesn't have the facilities. That's Team A versus Team B, who has both teams in and does have the facilities. Team B immediately has the advantage because they have the facility space to pull it off. Team A is immediately at a disadvantage and has to make a decision. Let's just argue that the alternating weekend thing has been abandoned. They have to make a decision on who hosts. Add in the fact we're in spring season, so some of these schools are using locker room space for their spring sports. So now you're going to tell your spring sports you got to go hike because the men's and women's teams want to host? Or you got to tell the men's and women's teams they can't host because spring sports have the locker rooms. This is not an equitable conversation. And we shouldn't, no, we're fine the way we are. But here's the biggest key of why this can't go through. Who's getting up to have 7 a.m. practice? Because if you start thinking about it, if you have 4 games to be played on one particular day, you got to get them practice time on the floor on the day before, and then the day of, you got to get everybody run-through time. 8 teams, and you've got 4 games? You do the math. Even 1 hour practices. That's 8 hours of practices before games tip at probably 2. So a handful of teams are practicing before they've had breakfast? Can we be realistic in these conversations, please? Could we alternate and start going to opposite days like men's and women's soccer do at the Final Four and got away from everybody playing on the same day? Sure, we could. You still have facility issues. So let's say we alternate. One gender on Thursday with their first round, one gender on Friday with their round, Saturday with the second round, Sunday with the second round for the other gender. Okay, now teams have to get there by Wednesday to have practice. You got to get 4 teams practiced on Wednesday. Thursday, you could get 4 teams practiced and 4 teams walkthroughs. Maybe those who practice can't practice on the floor they're going to be playing on. Not sure that's a great idea in the NCAA tournament. Then that's Thursday. Friday, the 2 teams who advance for the one gender, they get practice time, plus the 4 teams who get walkthrough. So now you got 6 practices to get in before 2 games. Then on Saturday, you're at least down to 4 teams, right? Because you'll have the 2 teams who play that night and the 2 teams who will play on Sunday. You've got 3 days there that's a logistical nightmare, not to mention the fact teams have to get there sooner. We're missing more class time now, which is supposedly a paramount of Division III, right? And I know there's spring breaks, but not everybody has the same spring break. Stop bringing this up when we need to be having a celebration. Talk about it in the offseason. Talk about it at the convention in January. But I'm not for it for all the reasons I just described. I don't think it's equitable. I don't think it's fair to everybody if schools can afford to make monster things, especially in this day and age when schools are just trying to survive. And then it's a logistical nightmare. I am tired of us shooting ourselves in the foot in this division, bringing crap up, making media attention when we should be celebrating the division. We could go back to the CUNYAC tournament. Medgar Evers arguing that they should have played John Jay to determine who would have eventually played Baruch in the title game. On paper, maybe they have a good argument. Medgar Evers won 6 games this year and got beat by Lehman by more than 30. Why is he in the New York Post actually making that argument? Because the ineligible player, I'm guarantee you, didn't make a difference in their game against Lehman. They only won 6 games, and I'm not trying to be mean to them. My point is we're giving a black eye. And now I guarantee you every conference out there is going to go figure out how to deal with a nullification problem due to an ineligible player in March that they weren't expecting. But my point being is we keep shooting ourselves in the foot, giving ourselves bad press, giving the division a bad look when we should be celebrating the division and dealing with these things at other times. I'm more than welcome and happy to have these conversations in the offseason or at the convention in January, and let's hash stuff out. Not in March. And to the people who pushed back that said we had false information about somebody missing a press conference, try again. Pat, myself, Ryan, Gordon, if he ever does go to social media to post a breaking news story, we do not just throw stuff out there and hope we're right. There are conferences who know better. We will report what we know. We will go through our sources. Sorry, I got a little more ranty than I wanted. Let's wrap things up, put a bow on this show, including, please go read Ryan Scott's article about 5 years ago in the men's tournament. I've only read part of it, and it's spectacular. And I heard from the chair of that committee, men's basketball. He's given me a lot of stuff to feed off of. But the one thing he wrote, if you haven't done so already, give a shout out to Ryan Scott, finally releasing the 2020 story about how that season's bracket would have played out. Of course, we had Ryan on the show. I've been waiting for that story for years. This is Sam Atkinson, if you remember. A great read about maybe one of the best tournaments that never got concluded. We were all robbed of something special that March 2020. It was one of the better brackets, right? And he points out we have some of these tastes here in the Sweet 16. Whitworth and Swath. I mean, just again, he reminds us what we already knew. Whitworth, Swarthmouth, Brockport, Tufts, St. Thomas, St. John's, Pomona, Pitzer, Elmhurst, Mount Union, Wittenberg, Randolph-Macon, Yeshiva, Hobart, Christopher Newport, WashU, North Central. Every region, Old 8 setup was represented. Remember, all 8 represented in the Sweet 16. Unbelievable. It's a shame, to say the least, that we lost that one. Ryan has a great article. I plan to read it in depth. We will link it on our show page. We will post about it as well. But it's on the front page at d3hoops.com. It's a fun read. And by the way, hats off to Penn State Harrisburg, because they wrote an article also about that experience and how they pulled off 2 outstanding wins, or had 2 outstanding games, I should say. I apologize. They beat Johns Hopkins, you remember, in round number 1, and then ran into the buzzsaw that was Yeshiva in round number 2 at Hopkins. Penn State Harrisburg put out an entire expose and recap and reminder of that fateful day nearly 5 years ago. Well, when they released it was 5 years ago. We're just over 5 years ago removed from when those games took place. Remember, it was March 12th when the announcement came out. We were hoping to have Baldwin Wallace on this show. I wasn't going to bring this up, but it's apropos. We're hoping to have Baldwin Wallace on this show. Sherry Harrer was on my show in a recorded segment on March 12th, 2020. And I had told her, I said, we're recording this, but Sherry, if we get news during this, we're going to just pivot in real time and respond to it, and I'm going to air it like that. And lo and behold, we were wrapping things up at 4 p.m. on that tape segment when the news dropped. And Sherry and I immediately talked about it, and I vividly remember saying, I've got to go talk to my team because they don't know yet. It was an emotional moment for all of us. Can't believe it's 5-year anniversary is coming up in 2 days. We'll talk probably more about that on Thursday's show, 7 p.m. Eastern time. I'm hoping we're going to be talking to Gettysburg women. We're going to talk to their superwoman and one of their guards about their weekend and how they pulled off the win against Western New England. That's already things I've got on the docket. I'm debating some other ideas. Being a Thursday, being its host schools, it'll probably be mainly host schools that we're talking to. But we'll have a show 7 o'clock Eastern time. But hey, hats off to everybody who joined me on the show tonight. Or today. Jeez, it's not tonight, Dave. Come on. Really appreciate everybody's flexibility on getting on the show today. Let's see here. I'm going to go through the list. Alyssa Pulaski at Geneseo, Brad Fisher at Oshkosh, Marcus Kahn at Mary Washington, Aaron Kelly at Catholic, Will Bartozik, Austin Brewer, and Matt Brackett, all at Hardin Simmons, including Matt, who was not feeling well. And, of course, thanks to Ryan for bringing us his insight on that tournament from 5 years ago. Thanks, everybody who supports us on this show. We'll be on the air again Thursday, 7 o'clock Eastern time. And thanks to all the sports information directors who helped us from Geneseo, Oshkosh, Washington, Mary Washington Catholic, and Hardin Simmons for their assistance on getting this show put together. Jeff and Clint, Riley. Also, thanks to Bradley and Chad and his staff at Hardin Simmons. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. You've been listening to Hoopsville, presented by D3Hoops.com. I'm sure some of what I said at the end here might get some attention, but I hope you also think it through on what I've said and appreciate my perspective on it. We got to do better, Division III. Stop shooting ourselves when we have the spotlight on us, right? And with that, we'll see you Thursday at 7 Eastern. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. Got a great set of sectional games ahead of us, and we'll talk more about it on Thursday's show. Take care.